Welcome to Lagos State Media Beyond Boundaries. Today, tonight, this afternoon, evening, wherever you are tuning in, happy 12th anniversary Independent Day of South Sudan to each and every one. Our speakers, guest speakers of Lagos State Media today, we have Dr. Peter Biar Ajak, and also we have our brother, Dr. Awuolic, and we have Shepo CEO, Mr. Edmund Yakani, my co-host, Majong Makur Malak, also is the one who will lead this show with you. So Majok will give you the floor to welcome all our viewers and our guests in the studio. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Isaac Paul. To all South Sudanese across the globe, happy Independent Day. Although we South Sudanese, we have nothing to be happy about, we're still being proud. We are proud, actually, we have our own nation and our state, despite the confusion that we are in. On the same notes, you are all invited to join us and share this live show on your different Facebook wall, so that many of your colleagues will get to join and also listen to the voice of reasoning actually from our three guests of today. And the first guest is Awuolic. Awuolic has been vocal enough in the affairs of South Sudan, and many of you knows Awuolic as the member of PCCA, and he's here today to give us his opinions in regard to the move and the affairs of our nation, and most especially on three accounts. Number one, the issue of election and the speeches of the president. The speeches of the president, number one speech is the speech of president delivered in WOW during SPLM rallies in WOW, and then yesterday's speech of 12th anniversary speech by the president. He will also touch base on that. And lastly is the economy of the country that we are in. And the second guest is Dr. Peter Biar Ajak. And most of you are familiar with Peter Biar Ajak. He has always been at the front line when it comes to the affairs of South Sudan. And he's one of the senior youth that always admired South Sudan to be the beautiful, prosperous, and peaceful nation, whereby every one of you will live independently, enjoy the meaning of having your own independent state. And the third speaker, or the third guest, is our usual speaker and our guest, prominent activist, one of the leading personnel among the activists in our country, my brother Edmund Yakani from SEPO. And Edmund Yakani has been doing a lot for that nation. He sacrificed his energy, his money, his time, and everything to make sure South Sudanese get first-hand information and to make sure communities, especially the pastoralist community, always live in harmony. He has always been moving up and down from state to state, trying to investigate the cases of human rights abuse and also the cases of cattle raiding. And he always contributes positively toward the change and development from the grassroots to the political level. Up to this juncture, permit me, my viewers, to give each one of them 2 minutes to give us his opening remark before we dive into our conversation of today. And I will begin with my brother Edmund Yakani. If you are hearing me clearly, the chance is yours. Give us your opening remark. Thereafter, we move to Abraham Awuolic. And then Abraham Awuolic, we conclude with the Dr. Peter Biar Ajak in that sequence. Thank you so much, and may God be with you.
Thank you very much for welcoming me for this important historical day of national identity. I'm proud for being South Sudanese. I'm proud of having independent nation, though we are disappointed by our political leaders after we obtain our independence, because we have been really in this very bad situation, which you can constitute as transitioning from one section of violence to another. But I'd like to say welcome to everybody and hi to my fellow brothers, Abraham Awuolic, Peter Biar, and we hope that we should all work together, whatever the case is. It's only let death separate us from struggling for the nation we want. As long as we are alive, wherever we are, let's put our energy together to win the South Sudan that we want, a South Sudan that is described by respect of human rights, practice of democratic values, respect of nationalism, where me and you, we can sit together as nationalists without anyone asking anybody any discriminative question or question of selections. So I'd like to say hi to every South Sudanese wherever you are. Happy independence. We hope that next time, the same day like this, we celebrate it with a democratic country, with a democratic nation. Of course, that can't be easy. That requires a struggle. And normally our struggle is a non-violent struggle. But welcome to everyone and hi to everyone. Happy Independence Day, 12th anniversary. And let's be proud as our national anthem says. But we have to struggle to translate the national anthem into reality in our day-to-day lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Abraham Awuolic.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Majuk Makur and all the Lake State Media team for hosting us today, and to my brother Dr. Peter Biar and Brother Edmund Yakani. I remember I was introduced also earlier as Dr. Abraham Awuolic. I have not pursued any PhD program, but I'm not offended. But what I can say is that I'm delighted to be here and to share my perspective. Happy and Independence Day to all the people of South Sudan, wherever they may be. And obviously, we don't celebrate our Independence Day because we are happy. We celebrate our Independence Day because we are free people. And even though we have colossal leadership failure in our own country, it doesn't take the country back. South Sudan remains a republic that we are proud of, and that we are working hard to make sure that it is a place that accommodates all its people, that gives the people the promise of freedom, justice, and prosperity, and a place that cherishes the values of democracy, personal liberty, and freedom for all citizens. So that is the country that we are fighting for now. So we have achieved the independence of South Sudan at a very high cost of millions of our own people, and including our leaders, Dr. John Garang Damabior, who led this struggle. But the country must live on, and that is what we are fighting for, not for ourselves, but for our children. We want our children to continue to celebrate the independence of our country long after we are gone. And so today is a significant day and a day that must be commemorated, even if we are hungry, even if we are afraid, and we feel insecure, and we feel divided, we still have to celebrate because we have a nation that we achieved through our collective efforts. And so I want to congratulate all the people of South Sudan for these 12 years of our independence. We have not lost our nation. We are still holding on to it. But we could lose it if we continue to follow the current trajectory. We must change course immediately because this country cannot sustain this level of failure for too long. We have to reverse course. Otherwise, there have been so many countries in this world that have come to exist and they are no more. And so South Sudan could cease to exist if we don't take care of it. And that is why our national anthem speaks about vowing to protect our nation. And so Peter Biar, myself, and Edmund Yakani, and even you, the team at Lake State Media, have vowed to protect South Sudan by telling the truth about what is wrong and by calling spade a spade. It cannot be hidden anymore. We have failed to govern our country properly, and we cannot just continue. We have to stop this madness, return to the table, and fix our country so that we can happily grow old and die in it. What does Peter Biar need outside South Sudan? What do I need outside South Sudan? And many of you, what do we need outside South Sudan? We have a beautiful country, a rich country. We should all be there to fix it, to make it rich. Yet we have been expelled because we have spoken. We will continue to speak until justice, freedom, and prosperity is realized in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abraham Awuolic, for that statement that we celebrate not because we are happy, but because we are free people. It is a deep statement, and many South Sudanese will get that information deeply, and they will digest it in their own ways. Dr. Peter Biar, Ajak, the chance is yours to give us your opening remark before we dive into our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Majuk Makur Malak, and the entire team of the Lake State Media for inviting me to be part of this program on this important occasion. Let me start off by wishing happy independence anniversary to all the people of South Sudan. Today we are celebrating 12 years of nationhood. This is a great achievement. I want to salute all our heroes, all the people of South Sudan that voted in the referendum. I want to thank all the members of the organized forces, all our veterans and leaders that waged the war for the independence of South Sudan to become a reality. Starting from our president, Salva Kiir Mayardit, all the way to a soldier that has no rank, I salute you and I thank you for your sacrifice. Although our country is in a crisis today, that was not in vain. You fought very hard to put South Sudan on a map, to secure the borders of South Sudan outside. You have given us a country, and we are grateful for that. What is now needed for us is to build that country, to build within those borders. And I think that is a challenge that all of us as people of South Sudan are capable of undertaking. We should not give up. We should not lose hope. The independent anniversary we are celebrating today is the 12th anniversary. 12 is a very important number. It has a lot of meaning in mysticism, in religion. You remember very well, Jesus Christ had 12 disciples. You know very well there are 12 months in a year. In fact, in the ancient world, 12 was considered as a number of perfection. And when we grow up as children, you count from 1 until 12. But then from 13, you enter now teen, become 13, 14. So those 12 years are usually the years of childhood. But then now we enter adulthood as teenagers. We enter adolescent age. We begin to see changes in how our voices work, especially if you're a man. Your voice begin to sound different. Your body change because you are entering a new age. I believe that is the same thing for South Sudan. May this anniversary spark a sense of nationhood and a sense of reflection about where we are going as a country, where we are going as a people. We do not have any other country. South Sudan is the only country we have. There is no need for us to ravage it, for us to destroy it, make it known for terrible things. We can make it heaven on earth. God Almighty was not wrong to put us there and to bless us with the resources that He gave us. May we use those wisely for the benefit of our people. May we fight for unity. May we model ourselves to be better neighbors and better citizens to our fellow beings. I'm really looking forward to engaging all of you in this discussion, and I'm overjoyed to join my brother Abraham Awuolic and my brother Edmund Yakani on this wonderful reflection of our independence. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Biar, for the analogy of actually defining what the 12 mean. And we hope this 12 of South Sudan will be a different 12. It will give us a true meaning of what the 12 mean when you are entering into adolescent age. Actually, to our viewers, we are now moving to the conversation. It is a conversation. And if you are down there and ready to ask them any question, then you are entitled to comments under the comment section. We have the team of Lagos State Media and the studio behind the scene. They will trace your comments and they will display it for our guests to answer you accordingly. And to begin with, Edmund Yakani, today is our Independent Day as South Sudanese. And before I moved to the United States of America in year 2021, I always see kids, South Sudanese, traveling by feet from Chirkat all the way to New Side during Independent Day. They just move until midnight. Is that thing still on or not yet? You will answer that later on. And there are many questions that we will talk about. Number one, we are 12 years old as a nation. What have we achieved so far as the country? Number two, we are talking about elections, and the rallies were conducted recently on 4th of this month in region of Barkazal, especially in Wow, for the party SPLM. As somebody who is on the ground, can you talk confidently that the elections will be on coming next year, December? And if yes, then what is happening to other political parties and to other South Sudanese who are not contented with the way the affairs of our nation are being handled, and especially the all-out groups, which they always refer to by the government? Edmund Yakani, I'm giving you 3 minutes to respond to those two questions, and then I move to Dr. Peter Biar and then Abraham Awuolic. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. First, I'd like to tell you that the scenario of citizens jubilating and celebrating the spirit of having a nation, regardless whether it's a democratic, whether it's a nation that delivers service, is still high. The streets of Juba, motorbikes are full of flags. People even turn the flags to put on the boot of their vehicles. We have the tuk-tuk is full of flags. People even are doing their own events, going to Bor Road for sort of like tourism. If you see today, Bor and Terekeka Road are full of flags. of South Sudan, young people, teenagers, people driving around. You ask question about politics, they'll tell you, look here, we are disappointed with the politics. But having a nation, rather whether this nation is democratic or delivering us service, whether it have rule of law or respect of human rights, that one is a different case. But as citizens, we are happy that we have an identity to be called a South Sudanese. So that one is there. That one, I have to be honest with you, is there. People are celebrating their own capacity, that they are happy with that. But once you start asking about the nation itself, how it's governed, you get different answers. That one thing I'd like to share with you, that movement is there between Sherikat and now Biar, as I said, Biar and Trekeka Road become a site of tourism. All vehicles are driving that side, people are taking their own fish. So that spirit is there, it's very high. Coming to the campaigns, I like to describe the campaigns in this way, that in one day we have seen...
Before you move to campaign, you need to dissect, have we achieved anything as the nation seen our independence according to the expectation of our people? Thank you.
To be honest with you, I've been in the streets of Juba today asking people what can they describe as something that they see it as a sign of progress after we obtain our independence. Most of the people are speaking only on the tarmac road. The tarmac road is on the top, followed up by the stadiums, the football stadium, the Dariada, with the nature, how it looks like, and then the basketball stadium, they see it as well. And even the performance of the basketball team is also ranked as something that is a progressive that we have never enjoyed before, that they have spoke about it. But many people will tell you, once you talk about the role of the private sector, after independence, they believe private sector have made good progress in terms of building infrastructure in the town, specifically Juba town. You see, private sector have improved the look of Juba town, but that's not a state. So when you compare between the role private sector have played and the role the state have played, the state is more of the infrastructure and more is linked with the roads, is much more linked with the things like stadiums that we have seen, the football stadium, the basketball stadium. And then when you look at things like so those are some of the things that people constitute them as a progress that they have seen. And bit of it is that also something that today I didn't felt about it, but many people are saying we are waiting to see the physical look of our state house, because at least now, after 11 years, we have seen a foundation of our state house is starting in J1, because the history of J1 has been challenging. And even today, I will tell you, the streets of Juba, there are many people who are telling me that, look here, as we are commemorating the independence, the 8th of July is a dark day in our history. We need to be commemorated. So some will tell you, like, yeah, we need to name the 8th of July as a dog fight in the State House memory. So like, we should not allow the dog fights that happened in 2016, because it's the same day on the 8th of July prior to the independence at 5 p.m. and we have lost 200 lives. So many people are saying, look here, this Memorial Day, we should not avoid it. Many people are advocating like, look here, we need to be there. So these are some of the things that people see as a role of the state have done. But private sector, there's a lot of praises going to the private sector of what they have done. Politically, I will tell you 80% of the people sort of like really concluded the politicians has failed. The politicians have not delivered. That's what they conclude in terms of like opinion towards the performance of the state and the government, and specifically the performance of the government. That is the, like, look here, we have been humanitarian supported until now, since before independence and up to the period of independence. So that's the role how they tell the government in terms of the evaluation I have in the streets of Juba. Even soldiers were saying we are losing the spirit, we are losing that morale that we have during the struggle. When come to this day where you feel I have contributed with the uniform I have, and I can remember the lives of those whom we have lost in the front line. That momentum is disappearing. And of course, that is related to questions of political leadership and politics of the day that have made them to lose that. So those are a few things I would like to give it an answer, but we can dive more as we're going to answer so many questions. Let me go to the campaign. Give me 3 minutes. I want to respect those 3 minutes. The campaign, one day it happened, Melekal is blue, Wow is red. What about Juba? What Juba should look like? We're waiting for the day where Juba is mix of blue and red, because they went to Melekal as a blue and one team went to Wow as a red. If you see, it's two parties strongly campaigning, the SPLM and the SPLM-IO. Now, if you hear their speeches during the campaign, they have critical and very hard questions to answer. And these questions are centered on what we call as a conducive environment for the conduct of the election by December 2024. What is it? Number one, and I'll tell you this is after I have done several events that I've been working around. Number one on the top, besides all the provision of the Liberalized Peace Agreement that was ranked by the citizen, is open political and civic space. People believe even if you implement the agreement, as long as no open civic and political space, these elections results are questionable because people believe, allow us to assemble, allow us to associate, allow us to move, allow us to speak freely without any form of restriction. And besides, look here, this is besides the pending task of the Revitalized Peace Agreement. And this is where I would like to bring to your attention that I stand behind that also the political constituency is beyond the secret to the Revitalized Peace Agreement. The whole out groups, we have my two colleagues are here. I don't know what crime they have committed, and my brother Peter Biar have raised an apology that even the state ignore. As a sign of maturity, the state ignore. And my brother Abraham Awuolic is here. He is part of, by then working with the state. When he start challenging the state, then he's considered as a criminal. So for me, the question of open political space is number one when talk about the campaigns. So both political parties, when talk about open political space, each one speaks for their own interest as an entity. They don't speak for the interest of the rest. When SPLM say, oh, we need to open political space, is when they find hardship posed to them by SPLM-IO, like what happened in Fangak with our colleague Peter Biar, who was Biar Butrus, the commissioner of Fangak, the way how we fix the SPLM-IO. There, SPLM will say we need open political space. And when IO is fixed in Northern Baragazal, they will tell you we need political space because we are unable to do our activities as SPLM-IO in Northern Baragazal. But when you look at the broader call for political space, it's giving everybody the chance to speak, to assemble, to assist. This is number one in terms of the campaign. Of course, the next follow is that without really responding to what you call the key pending task of the Revitalized Peace Agreement, unification of forces. That's very important. The forces need to be unified. And if you don't reconstitute the transitional political institutions, and this is mainly the Electoral Commission, the political parties, you don't resource them. That's going to be a problem. And as we speak by now, the electoral law is still under the status of amendment before the parliament. And the president has spoken about it in his speech that he wishes the parliament can pass soon. But remember also, we don't have a functional electoral commission. We don't have a functional political parties. Now you need to have enough time to resource them, to make them functional, equip them with human resource, and then give them the plan to run the whole country. That's really a key question. And there's other questions, which are questions of dilemma. Should we go for elections without constitution and without population census? How do we demarcate constituency? Those are all questions of dilemmas that happen. So if you look at the campaigns sort of like people are trying to sanction the campaign towards elections in line of the Revitalized Peace Agreement, without knowing that actually when you talk of elections, election is not only limited to the Revitalized Peace Agreement or limited to the whole out groups. Elections open. And I'll tell you one of just to conclude with, I can tell you in all these campaigns, none of them support the idea of independent candidates. And that speaks volume of political ideology, of political fears. When some of us, maybe we don't want to contest under blue color or red color or yellow color or orange color. We need to go independent. The electoral law should embrace the concept of independent candidates. And honestly, my assessment, I'm in South Sudan, that when it comes to states level, the states election, independent candidates are going to contest more strongly against the post of the governorship, state parliament. And at state level, they're going to be more violence compared to national or local government level per the assessment as I'm on the ground. That's my 3 points. I'd like to end up there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Edmund Yakani, for highlighting those sensitive informations in regard to the campaigns of blue and red. But the question is still whether South Sudan is for blue and red alone. There are no other colors in that country, and you will comment on that later on. Dr. Peter Biar, Ajak, the chance is yours for 3 minutes. And remember, we are asking ourselves, since we gained independent in 2011, all the way to 2013 before the crisis broke out, up to now, 2023, and we are now moving to 2024, what have we achieved as a nation? Have we met with the expectation of our people who contributed their sons and daughters to go and fight? Have we met with the expectation to those who contributed their cattle, their poultry animals to the soldiers who were at the front line? Have we met the expectation with this period of time or not? Thank you. unmute yourself.
My apologies. Thank you so much, my brother Majok Makur, for that profound question. Let me answer it very differently. I think a lot has been achieved since the independence of South Sudan in 2011. Obviously, we have a country. We have established a government. This government is present at the national level. There is government at state level, at the level of counties. The structures are there. Of course, we have our flag. We have established diplomatic relations between South Sudan and other states. We have become members of international bodies. Right now, you can go to the United Nations and everybody knows exactly what is South Sudan. You can go to the African Union. We are part of the IGAD. And obviously, as Edmund mentioned before, our basketball team has been doing a lot of great work in putting us on the map. Our beautiful girls of South Sudan has been going around the world as models. They have also put us on the map. Obviously, we have our borders. Not all of them has been demarcated as we would want them, but at least there are borders of South Sudan. We have some remnants of institutions that have been established there. Obviously, we have our money. We may be facing challenges, but it is there. Just to say that we have a country. We have established a country, and that country is there. It's going to be there for us. And the challenge for us now is to actually build that country. When it comes to the issue of expectations, I was there in South Sudan when we got our independence in 2011. The expectation of our people were extremely high. And they were justifiably so, because they struggled for so long. They were treated so badly that when they got their nation, they had the right to expect that going forward, things are going to be different, that they're going to be treated with respect, they will be treated with dignity, that they will have a chance to pursue a life of happiness. If they want to be happy, they will have a room to pursue that in an environment where a government will be there to enable them, unlike in the Sudan, when the government was there to hold them back. That was the expectation. Now, obviously, those expectations have not been met. And I'm not here to litigate the past of what went wrong, who did what. We all know exactly what went wrong in our country. But what I want to say is this. I personally appreciate the contribution that every single South Sudanese has made, positive contribution that has been made to bring about South Sudan. Now, during that process, did we make mistakes? Absolutely. But the challenge was unique because none of us has been on that journey before. None of us has been tasked to build a state from scratch. Our president, Salva Kiir, had no experience in doing this. Yes, there are other nations that have done that, and they provide learning and guidance, but in terms of our own original experience, none of us had that experience. The same thing with our military. They had no experience of being a national army and being an army that protects the state and protect the people. The same thing with National Security Service. They have done some good work in terms of establishing themselves, in terms of things that have been done for the country. Those things are there. Obviously, the task was new. And when people embark on anything new, they are bound to make mistakes. So I'm not here to point fingers at anyone, blame anyone for what has happened. But my point is this. Now is the time to move forward. We can no longer claim that we are an infant nation, a nation that is 12 years. In our African cultures, when you are a boy and you become 12, afterwards, you go through some rites and rituals of passage, where you enter adulthood. You stop the things that you do when you were a child. Like in our Dinka customs, boys, they milk cows. But now when they reach that age, they now stop milking those, they become men. And as men, they have obligations, they have duties, they have things that they need to do. I think this is the challenge we are now as a nation. We need to do a lot because our people have a right to expect a lot. We live in a nation that has been blessed with so much resources. We sing in our national anthem that it is a land of great abundance, and it is true. But our people are facing starvation. This is an insult to us as a people of South Sudan and as a country of South Sudan. To be calling the international community every time to come and feed our people when we have oil flowing, when we have gold, we have a land that is so fertile that all our leaders have continued to say that you can grow a nail, you can plant a nail, and it will grow. This is an insult. And it means that all of us are not doing something right. And it's not about us pointing fingers to the top. Top is a part of us. It's not always the one that tells us what to be done. We also at the bottom have responsibilities. We have obligation and we have duties as citizens. I want to remind our people that independence did not come about because the leaders of South Sudan wanted independence. Independence came about because people of South Sudan wanted independence. The question is, what did we want to do with that nation? And for me, I believe it was so that whatever life that is in that land that called South Sudan, that life may prosper, that life may grow, and may be a blessing, not only to the country and the continent of Africa, but to the entire world and to the entire human species. We are capable of doing that. There is no reason for us to shy away from our duties. There is no reason for us to be afraid and to have fear. This is the time that we must muster courage. Not that so that we can fight others, because we do not need to fight ourselves, but so that we can confront so many challenges that face our country, and that must be confronted. This is the reason why boys are made men, so that they can defend their societies, so that they can advance the values of their people. This is the challenge that we face now as people of South Sudan, and I have no doubt that we are capable of meeting this challenge head on.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Biar, for those remarks and actually answering the questions in different dimensions. Basically, are you telling us that we have achieved the state and we have our nation now with everything that we desire to have, but we are not yet free politically and economically? That's what you are telling us?
No. What I'm saying is that we have a country. We have achieved the country, but we are yet to build a state. Because what is a state? A state is a vision, a shared vision of the future. Is building consensus of ideas of why you and I call ourselves South Sudanese. What makes us one people? What is our shared destiny? How do we pursue it? How do we build structures, systems that allow us to get there? How do we establish an environment where life can prosper and can be free? I want to thank the people that got us the country, because they also made enormous contribution, and that contribution should be acknowledged. And they should also know that they should not fear that this country will turn against them. No, we will always be grateful. What we will not accept is for us to be held back. We want to move forward. And when we say we want to move forward, we are not against anyone. We appreciate everyone. We appreciate what has been done. And we know a lot of terrible mistakes have been made. But we are human, and as human, we fall short of the glory of God. But it does not mean that we can try to be better neighbors to our people. It does not mean that we cannot lighten each other's load, each other's burden. This we can do, but it only starts with us saying, now is the time to move forward. And after celebrating 12 years of independence, I believe now is the time for us to move forward on that journey to realize all the things that we aspire for when we took up those arms and fight to liberate this country called South Sudan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for clarification. Indeed, it's a critical message that as citizens of that country, we have obligation and we have duty to do in order to achieve the prosperous South Sudan each one of us always desire to live in. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Biar, for that. We move to Abraham Awuolic. Abraham, the question is still the same. seen independence up to now. And as Dr. Peter Biar used analogy of initiations of a Dinka boy, and also Nuer, they do the same thing. Once you are 12 and you are almost entering to 13, you always go through some cultural activities to be initiated from childhood to adulthood. And while in the adulthood, you don't do the things that you used to do when you were a child. And that analogy actually has really described the whole the scenario in our country. What have we achieved? And if we have achieved some things and we are not yet achieved some things, are we optimistic that now we are entering to adulthood? Will we achieve those things? Maybe during elections or after elections? The chance is yet, Awuolic, and thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Majuk and my colleagues, Peter Biar and Edmund Yakani, for your comments. I would say that with regards to the independence of South Sudan, we have achieved some things as a people. We are sovereign. We are able to make decisions on our own. We don't seek permission from others to relate to others, other countries, or to make decisions that affect the life of our people. And that sovereignty comes with certain responsibilities, as Dr. Peter said. When you are independent, you no longer have the excuse of saying that this has not happened because others are preventing us from making progress in this area. So I would say much of what we have achieved is the independence of the Republic of South Sudan, and we have put in place some institutions, and we have put in place a government. But I could say that much of what has happened since 2013 has been a distraction. We very quickly achieve a lot of things and put in place a number of good instruments, but we have been systematically destroying those institutions. For example, let me give you an example. One of the things that we inherited from the SPLM and from the old Sudan is a very strong military. The SPLA was a very strong military and could defend South Sudan very well. But we have weakened that institution terribly. We have undermined the men and women who fought for this country. We do not thank them. Those who have lost limbs, those who have died and left behind children, we do not thank them. And we do not honor them the way they deserve to be honored. And we also did not pay back the people who in their villages gave up their children to fight the war. South Sudan doesn't give birth to children. It is parents who give birth to children. And they contributed their own children to fight the war. They also provided the logistics. They carried the SPLM, SPLA in their heads and on their back. And they fed the SPLM, SPLA until victory was achieved. And suddenly we forgot them. Now suddenly, the people who claim to have fought the war are those in Juba who are in government, and leaving alone the rural South Sudan, which actually fought the war. The war in South Sudan was fought and won by the people in the rural areas. And they have not received any benefits or any recognition whatsoever. And I remember 3 years ago, when I went home, my own uncle told me that, what is this government of yours who has forgotten the people who were insulted, who were abused by parents who had to give up their children? He said, I was one of the people who made a decision to let you go join the SPLA, and your mother was so bitter. You know, she insulted me so badly. The same thing with the others. And suddenly now you have your own government. We are going to die all, and we have not heard anything. Nobody has come to us to say thank you. And so what do we get out of this? We were hoping that we were going to be rewarded at least with the recognition, but that has not happened. So essentially, we have not gone back to ourselves and say thank you, Mabruk. We have done a great job. We didn't do that. We didn't also heal the wounds that were inflicted on us during that time. This is why the nation is not stable. We have not done a good service to ourselves. So the institutions that made South Sudan what it is, and one of them is the military, has been weakened, has been hollowed, and has been reduced to a militia. This is a fact. These are things that must be said on occasions like this. And much of the powerful arm of our own army is a personal militia of our president. This is the body that gets arms, that get uniform, that is well fed. Everyone else that has joined South Sudan Defense Forces is languishing in poverty, and is unsure or even regretting why they had to join this institution. So the honor that comes with being a soldier of an independent nation has disappeared in South Sudan. The institutions of democracy that we had hoped to be established have been completely crushed systematically by the very men who fought for those ideals. The nation, which is the people, and I agree with Peter Biar that we have a country which is the geography and its people, but we don't have a nation and we don't have a state. A nation are the people united to achieve a shared goal or a shared vision. We don't have a vision, and therefore we don't share anything. We are divided, and we don't have a nation. We don't have a state because a state is the substance of the country. These are the army, the courts, the political parties, the constitution, the presidency. These are the people who guard the interests of the country. Those institutions have been rendered useless, and they have not served the interests of ordinary people of South Sudan. And so, in my view, the last 12 years, the first 2 years were great. We were happy. We were hopeful. But since 2013 up to today, it has been a disaster for South Sudan. That's why I said before, we are not commemorating our independence because we are happy. But we have a country that we fought so hard to achieve. But then we have failed. We have failed to govern. We have failed to provide economic vision to develop. We have the brains, and Dr. Peter Biar is here. We have the brains to make South Sudan economy work, but we have refused to use those brains. So we have brains to create a functioning democratic system. We have refused to use that. And so technically, I would say I am extremely disappointed by how we have managed the last 12 years of our independence, and we cannot continue. We have to stop from today. We have to stop here and reconsider where we have come. And this brings me to make a brief comment on the election. The most disturbing issue for me.
Yeah, we'll come for that, Abraham,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
All right,
We'll
let
come
me
for
stop there.
election.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You. Thank you so much for your answering and also giving the facts in regard to the affairs of our nation. That indeed we have a country, but we don't have nation, we don't have a state. First of all, we agree unanimously that there are some things South Sudan has achieved since our independence, and South Sudan is also achieved. But between we had challenges, and we are still trying to fix those challenges, of which Abraham will termed them that we refuse to do what is right. And indeed, when you look at the whole scenario, it tells you that we are refusing. Ever adults know the right thing and the bad thing. And when you choose to do the bad thing over the right thing, then the simple term is that you refuse to do the right thing. Thank you for that. Back to Edmund Yakani. Now we are moving into the speech of the president, Edmund. And when the president was in Wow during the rallies of the SPLM, president delivered a speech of which many people term as a rally political speech. And on that note, president was actually selling like his own agenda and his own party. Kindly, Edmund Yakani, you are always on time with the things that are happening within J1 or outside J1. Can you briefly highlight the few things in regard to the speech of the president in WOW and in line with his speech of our anniversary, where he acknowledged that since 2018, we have been having challenges of implementing peace agreement up to now. So you will also highlight some viewpoint in regard to that speech. Thereafter, we move to Abraham Awuolic, back to Dr. Peter Biar. Thereafter, we go to the issues of elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As you said, the speech in WOW of the president, and I'll do it in comparison with the speech of Angelina in Melakal, so that we don't ignore one side of the story, because we need to bring them all to the attention of our audience. The speech of the president in WOW, actually, it is a political rally speech, as you describe, and it's more of positioning himself as a party flag bearer. Maybe what you need to know is what triggered the event in WOW. The event in WOW is triggered by this feeling that there's a looming elections by December 2024, and almost like there's a consensus among the political elites that there's no more any opportunity that we're going to play with the language of extension. We can't extend the extended period. And President has made that in several 5 events, no more extension. So the only option on the table now is the looming elections. Whether we're prepared for it or not, I think we shall talk about it later on. So within the two parties, people start doing what you call self-disposal for candidature. So like people start disposing themselves as a candidate. And that started when President was in Lobonok for the SPLM thing, where he was endorsed as a flag bearer. And immediate endorsement of SPLM, of His Excellency the President as a chairman of SPLM in Lobonok, opened up a window. What is a window? All governors start organizing rallies. So governors even forget about their day-to-day business on the Council of Ministers. All of them have to go to SPLM events and start sort of like also positioning themselves. You know, I'm the flag bearer for the party at the state level. And that has caused havoc. Because as a civil society, we're doing what we call a pre-election observation exercise. So governors start also going back to the states and start diverting money to buying red t-shirts, caps, and going for rallies. And at each state level, and that confirms what I'm going to say, like election at the state level going to be terrible. In each state, some counties either challenge the incumbent governor to be the flag bearer of the party because he didn't use the party structures. I'll give an example. My state where I'm in, Central Equatorial State, when Emmanuel Adil contested that he wanted to be the flag bearer of the SPLM, to be blasted by the SPLM at state level and nobody again can come forward, Juba County said, no, we're not going to endorse you. We need to go to party structures. So almost like all over the country, that became a common. And that triggered president to quickly rush and issue these party directives of suspending party members' candidature endorsement for electable position at any level, if you remember. Then, this is my own analysis. Some people start questioning, but also we endorsed him in the same structure when we were in the SPLM In Lobon of that, we don't have a proper party structure, but he's endorsed there. So there's this question of, will there not be any another internal SPLM member who will emerge and say, I'm ready for the seat of the presidency? And I don't know what the political analysts and advisors around His Excellency President say, look here, the first region we must take advantage of for what we call a members endorsement is Bahr Ghazal. And that's why WOW event was created. WOW event is not only the numbers of SPLM in WOW. It is a mobilization of SPLM from the whole Bahr Ghazal region. So people have to come from Wara, from Abyei, from Legs, from Northern Bahr Ghazal, including WOW. So it's an SPLM regional event in WOW, SPLM members. And there, they endorsed president as a flag bearer. And as you see, he welcomed the endorsement by the members of the party, which is, if you go to primary principle of any party, sometimes some people raise, there's a questions whether that constitutes a primary organ of the party that endorsing. Of course, these are members that are endorsing. So the question is, we need to go quickly and seal the deal. Nobody else should merge up and say, I'm a candidature within the SPLM from Bahr Ghazal region for the seat of the presidency. So that's one thing that comes up. So if you look at the speech was responding to that rationale. And that's why if that's the rationale, then the speech become more of marketing, selling, and securing a position that here I am and I'm contesting and nobody else should challenge me in this seat. That's the speech, which is almost the same speech. If you see the speech of also at IO in Melaka, it's of the same rationale that people are pushing themselves towards that direction. So I would like to say that's a speech. But the speech have not hit bit of the party reputation with the primaries, or even party's position with regard to primaries. Okay, for example, a logical question normally merge up. After he issued a party directives of stopping endorsement of party members, as a chair, is he free from that directives? Or is he part and parcel of that directives, even if he also the directives? So that's a logical question, because say no endorsement, but now he went for endorsement in the region. Can also governors look at the regional event and secure that endorsement? Of course, these are different questions, but that's actually the rationale of where things are merging. So already the looming elections, people trying to position themselves, nobody should be challenged, and specifically the seat of the presidency. And remember, in 2013, that's the beginning when he started using party structures that take us to violence. That's one thing I'd like to say. So he didn't nail in his speech how are the primaries going to look like. Besides, he knew that actual internal primaries has become problematic with the party all over across the country. Where the SPLM are the deputy governors, there's a problem within the party. Where there are governors, there's a problem within the party. And there's likelihood that SPLM may have its internal crisis, may turn into crisis. I want to do something also with the SPLM-IU. SPLM-IU have the internal crisis, though they don't talk about it, but they push it to the SPLM. So all these parties that are seeking to revitalize peace agreement have internal crisis that they're having it. So that's the center of the speech. If you come to the independency, in the independency, he spoke a generic, which is below expectations, as the streets of South Sudan speaks, that they wish to hear from him more detailed speech. For example, what have he spoke about? He spoke about peace and stability in the country that will help IDPs and refugees to return. But what does that mean in practice? He spoke about the unification of forces. What does that mean in practice? And remember, in WOW, we accuse still his deputy of maintaining a separate army. And already we have seen lessons of having two armies when they're parallel with what's going on in Sudan and what come out even in Russia, what triggered in Russia. You have seen the difference of having two armies that almost equally want to equate themselves equal powers. The president have spoke about that there's a need to have unification, and he sanctioned in that speech of the party to have a presidency meeting under the spirit of the agreement, and they held the meeting. And the meeting came out with directives that directed deployment of the first graduated unified forces and roll out of the second batch. But the directives of the presidency, which was done recently, it is the fifth directives in my records. The fourth past directives were not being executed. Now, what is a guarantee that these fifth directives will be executed? Because it's the same order, the same directives being repeated 5 times, and that has been done 4 times in the past, and none of them is being executed. So those are some of the things that came out of the speech of the president on the Independence Day. Of course, he spoke about the question of elections, creating a legal and institutional framework for the conduct of the elections, and that's challenge, as I've mentioned in the beginning, critical. We're going to dive that a lot with regard to discussion when it comes for the post elections in terms of details of what exactly is required from the election. So the speech is both the speech in WOW for the party and the speech for the independency almost speak to each other. Only in WOW is more of positioning himself, I'm the candidate. And more of the independence is that, yes, there are challenges, I will take responsibility to respond to these challenges. But the question is this still a new speech? No. People expect to have more detailed speech. And I think we are going to see the next Friday Council of Ministers, because it will be the first Council of Ministers after commemoration of our 12th independence. And you know, any Council of Ministers meeting after celebrating anniversary of independence is very important. Will the Council of Ministers respond to the question of political parties having equal space for campaigns? As already WOW was red, Melekal was blue. Can the yellow of Sanction Chang come forward? Can the orange of these ministers of local government for Central Equatoria under the party of Banden headed by Bakasor, can it come up? And we have seen so many colors. Can those colors have equal space? Yes, I have seen a launch of those political parties' offices in Juba. They invited me. I spoke, and I saw the register of the political party was there. I spoke, but the question is political space to be open beyond the signatories of the revitalized peace agreement. Otherwise, this particular concept of credible, fair, and free is going to be problematic. So if you see the speech didn't nail down concrete ideas that we need to respond to these particular concerns. So WOW is totally political campaign. Then the question comes, have campaign started while the Electoral Commission is not in existence? Because Electoral Commission is supposed to declare the calendar for primaries within the parties. And the law is still before the parliament. Which law are we using? And that question goes both to SPLM and SPLM-IO, which have already started turning the towns blue and red. And of course, IO is moving under the pretext of we are opening our offices in the states. They have not done any regional. Then the next question that comes from WOW, after WOW has been seen red, the question is, will Juba also be red? With all Equatorians coming together? Will Upper Nile be red? With all Upper Nile states coming together? That's the next question to His Excellency President at his capacity as a chair of the red color in the town. The same thing goes to other political parties. So that's just what I like to compare in terms of the speeches. So the speeches are really more speaking to each other, but more generic without a detailed concrete. When you say unified forces, you are going to unify the forces. What does it mean? Is it different from what you have done for the last 4 years? What exactly is going to be concrete, practical actions that are going to do that? And I know we're going to talk about elections. Now, if you relate that speech to the speech spoken out by United States Secretary, or Secretary of State, if you see what U.S. was positioned towards our government, was 5 critical action points that our government have to undertake. And that number 1 is conducting fair, free, and peaceful elections. And then the question of unified forces that respect the issue of human rights, fighting corruption, and then going as further as instilling the culture of democratic institutions in South Sudan. Those are positions of U.S. That was not responded to by the speech of the president in offering practical action points of how we're going to deliver that. And almost that's the position of even the UN Secretary General represented in Juba. If you look at the statement of Hassan Fing, speaks to the same position of the US, and if you look at the EU, the same. So the question is, we need to answer those thematic area with practical decisions that convince them that, yes, we're ready for election. And number 1 is political space. As I speak now, I analyze the speech of the president yesterday. Immediately today, my guards were telling me some people came in uniform and asked, am I in the office? So that's a challenge, whether they are really state or they're not the state, but that's a challenge we're facing. So that's why I'll end my responses. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Edmund Yakani. Because of time, we move to Abraham Awuolic. Abraham, we are trying to analyze and also dissect the speech of the president on different 2 occasions. The speech in WOW during his rallies and the speech of the 12th anniversary of our independence. Kindly, can you dive into that before we move to the topic that I think will take our time, the topic of election? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Majuk and Brother Edmund Yakani for his analysis on this question. I really will not focus on the speech in Juba, the speech in relation to our independence. I've scanned through it and I'm not impressed, and therefore I have no comments on it. The speech in WOW, my concern is that with the speech in WOW, there was a threat that was issued in that speech, and that is where my focus is going to be. First of all, the president claimed that he doesn't want the armed groups to control any territory in South Sudan. So that is one. Number two, he claimed that the opposition should not have their own army. And then he said Dr. Riek Machar must choose either peace or war. Now, what warrant those statements? First of all, the peace agreement that he is implementing, which is the basis of his legitimacy as a president, provides for these different armies to remain where they were and to be unified. So the question of armed groups or people who are in the government controlling armed groups and controlling parts of the country doesn't arise unless the president has ill intentions. That question doesn't arise because who is frustrating the unification of these groups? They should have been unified 8 months before the transitional period starts. That was what the agreement said. And the oppositions definitely are willing and eager to want to be unified so that they can fully participate in the governance of South Sudan. But the president has frustrated all those efforts so far. In one time, there is no money. In another time, it is the opposition groups that are being bought. And I'm not going to say who said this, but in one event where some important people went to the president and said, Mr. President, why are you not unifying the army? He said, what do you mean I'm not unifying the army? This is another form of unification. You have seen we got some IO people and we got, this is another form of unification. What kind of unification do you want? So the type of unification that the president wants is to break off different the army of the SPLM-IO and SOA, bring them to his side, and there integrate them. That is why the president went ahead to make an agreement with Gedwich and Olony, who are senior commanders of the SPLM-IO, and then agreed immediately to integrate those people or to unify them. So if there was a challenge of getting guns and getting weapons and other things related to the unification of the armed forces, why was it easy for Gedwich to be offered that opportunity and Olony, and not the parties who have signed the peace agreement and have made a government together with him? So the president is taking the people of South Sudan for a fool. You know, we are reading all these things. So the president was actually provoking a conflict when he said Riek has to choose peace and war. Riek has chosen peace. The man came to Juba without a single soldier. And he's now being guarded by the soldiers of President Kiir himself. So how is he to choose peace and war again? The man has chosen peace. That's why he is there. And recently the president sacked the defense minister and actually snatched the defense ministry from the SPLM-IO. And despite the protests of the SPLM-IO, the president went ahead anyway and appointed somebody. And Riek Machar has done nothing. He's kept quiet and is seemingly going along with it, even though he knew that there is a grievance. So I feel that people of South Sudan need to pay clear attention to these provocations that the president has made. And they mean only one thing, that the president intends to provoke violence just before elections. And that is what these statements actually mean. Yes, the oppositions, they control those places because of the agreement. And they have parallel army in the same government because you have frustrated the efforts to unify those forces so that they become one army. So I think something is terribly wrong there, and we should not be silent about this. We really need to call the president out and to really pay attention to what he says. And each time he talks about something to do with violence, it happens. And so I think this one was a threat to which the president really need to make clarification. He has actually declared war against the SPLM-IO and other opposition groups. And it is just a matter of time, and this may actually happen. And I'm saying this within the context of the knowledge of some information that I have that South Sudan is trying to establish the equivalent of the Rapid Response Force. And 300 vehicles have been ordered, which will be mounted with weapons and will be placed under one of the individuals I'm not yet to name. What are those soldiers going to do? And who are they going to fight? And why are you doing that at this time when country is preparing supposedly for an election? So I'm just raising these questions so that people of South Sudan really need to pay attention and to not ignore warnings when they come, especially from the head of state. They must be taken serious and they must be challenged. And so that is what I want to say about the speech of the president. The president has a right to hold a political rally anytime, provided that the rallies are open for all. And the question that arises even further is, why was the rally held in Wau and not in Juba? When Juba is the seat of the SPLM and Juba is the seat of the government. Why hold a rally in Wau? That is a question. And furthermore, this is the third time the president has visited Barghazal in a row, and he has not visited Equatoria or Upper Nile. Why? And of course, if he decides to visit Upper Nile, he goes to Bor. And he has visited Bor maybe 3 or 4 times, and no other place. These questions are important because they portray and reflect a common issue that is raised by others, that President Kiir is serving only a Dinka constituency, a Jiang constituency, which is not true. The appearance of it is obviously concluded by others that way. But in reality, there is nothing to be gained by the Jiang in President Kiir's government. So anyway, I'm just raising those questions. These are important issues, and I'm disappointed in the president that he held this political rally and concluded his statement with a warning that is unwarranted, a warning that is totally unwarranted at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Awuolic, for your remark and for your analysis, and also giving South Sudanese information. And that is the essence of our conversation. Not every South Sudanese have access to information. And it is our duty as a media platform, especially online media platform, to invite guests like you to come and talk to South Sudanese and also give them some information of which they may not be having knowledge about. Thank you for that. And we move to Dr. Peter Ajak. Give us your thoughts and wisdom in regard to the speech of the president in 2 occasions. And thereafter, we move quickly to the elections, which is also could be the theme of our today's conversation alongside the celebration of our Independence Day. Thank you.
Well, you see, my brother Abraham Awuolic has highlighted most of the issues that concerned me, especially with his speech in Wau. But the first thing I want to say, I want to start first from the role that we have to play as citizens of South Sudan. That should be number one identity for all of us. We are South Sudanese, we are citizens. We are brothers, we are sisters. We are people trying to pursue a shared future. Dividing ourselves all the time, whether behind politicians or based on our ethnic identities or based on these regions that were created by, colonialists, this is something we must overcome. And it's a decision that each person makes as a person. And it's a challenge that we must reflect on as individuals. There is no single family in South Sudan that did not lose someone during the struggle for independence. Those lives, what was the point of losing them? Was it so that we can get power? One of the songs that we used to sing during the war, I'm sure Awuolic remember, there's a very good song by Ajak. There is a third verse, and it's in Arabic. My Arabic is not very good, and my voice is not very good either. But the third verse says, Lola kalfiyat al-mustamir waligali al-burujwazi lakin bibiladi fakif akun akshan وبلدي جزير والله مطار وكمان ناراني لازم يشوب من جنوب إلى شمال بلادي يا شباب الدنيا. You see the verse say, it said the problem in my country is that there is a clique, a corrupt clique that have usurped power. And this is the reason why I am thirsty in a country that is blessed with abundant rainfall and in which River Nile runs from the south to the north of my country. This was our analysis of the old Sudan and why the old Sudan had to be destroyed so that a new Sudan had to be built. The reason why old Sudan exists like that is not just there was a corrupt government, but there was a mindset of bigotry, a mindset of people that feel that they were better than others, that they deserve to be the first among the equals. We know who were these people. This was the Jalaba. These were the guys in the north, in the center, around Khartoum. And because of that ideology, Sudan broke down. We seceded. And this is why today fighting is still going on in Sudan. Unfortunately, when I was witnessing that event in Wau, and when I hear our president is speaking and the way in which he's conducting himself, it's as if you want to bring back that same mindset. And that mindset now, there are people that want to feel like they own South Sudan more than others. And the way in which the narrative is being driven, I don't know whether this is really the intention, but the way that it is appearing to majority of South Sudanese is as if the Dinka are claiming that position that the Arab used to hold in Sudan, where they're the first among all the other communities of South Sudan in terms of their state. And there have been some things that have shown that. Don't forget the role of the Jiang Council of Elders in how the conflict started in the first place. The role of Jiang Council of Elders in mobilizing Dinka support behind the president, mobilizing the military, mobilizing Dinka militia to back the president. That is one. The second is Barghazalism. And we have been shy about this to confront it because it has always been a very sensitive topic. But it's something that has been there since the first days of the SPLA. And it's something that is eating at the idea of South Sudan. My brothers and sisters, we cannot hold on to Dinkaism and to Barghazalism and still believe that there will be a nation called South Sudan. That is not possible. And as I said before, our president made enormous contribution in our independence struggle. He fought in the Anyanya War. He fought in the war of the SPLA. And then he raised our flag. The country I'm in today, the city I'm in today, is named after the first president of this country, George Washington. I am in Washington, D.C. There's another state of the 50 states of America also called Washington State. There's so many universities, so many towns in this country named after Washington. What was Washington's contribution to America? It was independence. That was it. And then the second, giving the power to the people. Not taking power as his own, trying to make himself into a king. He bowed down before the people and retired. Went back to his house, which is a few miles away from where I live, and lived as a life of a private citizen. He did not say, I have to build the economy, I have to bring the technology, I have to, no. He left that for others because he knew that the country belonged to the people. And he was not the only smartest person that God has given to America. There were others. So he opened the way, gave them the chance, set the example of the rule of law and of a servant leadership of the people. Despite everything that has gone wrong in South Sudan, our President Salva Kiir still have a chance of having such a legacy. He has raised the flag. All he needs to do now is to give the power back to the people. But if he becomes too attached to power, that he sees it as his own, he sees it as the reason to kill his own citizen, sees it as the only reason to loot the state, perpetuate divisions, hold people back from moving forward, people that clearly want to be united. But he's holding on to ethnicity, regionalism. We can all imagine that this legacy will not be the same as the legacy we celebrate today of Washington. It may very well end up like the legacy of the past president of Rwanda. No one even remembers his name. No one even talks of him. But he was in power for so long. It's not about the length of time in which you can keep this going on. It's about the legacy that can be bequeathed to the nation. And having confidence that the nation will honor that. They will not turn the good that you have done into a terrible things. And I say this out of love and care. Our president, if there are no people around him telling him about what is best for himself and the country, then let him listen to us, people that he thinks are not good to him. Let him hear this. He has done a great job in helping South Sudan to become a country. Now, you need to keep that country together. And the best way you can keep that country together is giving South Sudanese the right to choose their leaders and to move forward. The responsibility of this lies on us as citizens, starting with the members of the armed forces. They should not think of themselves as tools to be used by the president. Their loyalty is not to the president, is to the Constitution, is to the state, is to the country. Because we'll get another president, another president, another president. And God willing, this country will always be there. It will always have the army. It will always have its intelligence agencies. It will always have its judiciary. It will always have its parliament. It will always have its political parties. Let every citizen think about the institutions. Let them think about the country. When I listened to that speech in WOW, I was worried because it reminded me of the speech that happened December 13, 2013, where the president was warning, reminding people of terrible things that we wanted to forget. 1991, how Riyak is this and that. And as Awuolic said, and I also want to say this because we are in the same group here, we have to also advise ourselves and be frank with ourselves. Brother Edmund Yakani and all of you civil society leaders in Juba, we need to stop false equivalence. When you say both sides, our words lose meaning. We have to give responsibility where it is. As Awuolic clearly said, Riek Machar has chosen peace. That is why he's in Juba. He has chosen peace. He is in that country, is prevented from moving. A lot of things are being done, is enduring them. We need to be able to recognize that when we criticize. Parties are allowed to open offices. No one, Angelina did not go to Upper Nile and say IO has been endorsed, or Riek Machar has been endorsed as a candidate for IO, or I, Angelina, am going to be the one endorsed. It's opening office, talking about IO and recruiting members to their party. That one is fine. That is not what happened in WOW. What happened in WOW was every Payam in Baragazal having delegates being brought to WOW for a big rally. And we know Baragazal is the region where majority of the Dinka people live. Overwhelming majority of those states in Baragazal are composed of Dinkas. So when you look at it, it was like height of Dinka nationalism. Over what? Against whom? And for what? We must be able to reflect on those questions. And all those members that were there, I asked them, they as members of SPLM, who do they think will observe the implementation of their own constitution? They have a constitution, SPLM constitution. Their constitution talks about how candidates are supposed to be nominated, how candidates become flag bearers, whether it is for local offices, for regional offices, for national offices, is there in the constitution. Has any of those things been followed? And who is there to push for those things to be implemented? Is it the role of Edmund Yakani in civil society to come and say, let SPLM constitution be implemented? It is the role of the SPLM leaders. They have not done a convention. There are no congresses that has been held so that people can be nominated and so that someone can be nominated to be a flag bearer of the party. In fact, the party itself is not even registered. When we talk about rule of law, who is going to come to bring the rule of law? The opposition party? What about the citizen? The members of the armed forces, what do they think is their role? Just to run behind the president? The most saddest division that is taking place in South Sudan now is not even tribal, it's not even ethnic. It is between those who have been appointed into positions where they have access to resources, mostly illegally, and those who do not. Those who have been appointed into those positions, they have kept themselves quiet. They don't even talk. It's as if they decided to be dumb and to not contribute ideas for the nation building. There's a forum we have created here. Everybody is in it. They want to be in it. But those in position of power, they cannot say a single word. Why? Because they have reduced everything, the entire possibilities of what they can contribute to their fellow citizen and to their country, to just serving one man. And because this man is so unpredictable, and because among them, people are competing for that position. So if I am a minister of finance, outside there are probably like 50 guys lobbying to be the next minister of finance. If I say a word, even if that is a good word, among these 50 people that are competing for my position, it can be twisted and it's taken to the man who has the degree, and the degree come out and I find myself outside. This is why politicians in South Sudan only talk when they have lost positions. You can never hear them offering ideas of how South Sudan can move forward, how their own party, SPLM, can move forward until they're kicked out. Because they are so addicted to eating. So when they get into that position, they just want to consume as much as they can. And this is terrible. We must change that. We must be free to contribute ideas. Those people you find in Juba, many of them are patriots. They fought for this country. They would have never fought for it if they were not patriots. But they have allowed themselves to be reduced to charlatans, cheerleaders, people just clapping and jumping at every single whim of one single person because that person controls appointment degree. I don't even think it's because they're afraid. People that have gone to war and shot at bullets, they cannot be afraid. It's not about death that they fear. It's eating and being subjected to poverty, especially in old age, in a country where there is no pension and where no one, absolutely no one, can live on their salaries, especially those in the government. So you have to put your hand somewhere and to be grabbing things. Those SPLM leaders now, their own constitution is being violated. And you know what they are waiting for? They are waiting so that they can defect, so that they become independent candidates. And some of them are probably thinking about forming rebellions. They do not have a culture of saying within their organization, Ya Jama, even if the president is going to be ultimately our flag bearer, let him follow the law. Let us have a convention. Let us have primaries. Let us see who others, people within the party, can contribute ideas. They can't say that. And it's their own constitution. This is the tragedy. Those who find themselves in position of privilege, they cannot say anything. And it's the same thing in the armed forces. You remember Paul Malone when he was the chief of general staff? There was nothing wrong with the country, completely. Everything was perfect until he was removed. And the minute he was removed, all of these things are wrong. Yeah, Jamal, we cannot build a country like that. We have to build the country and have patriotism and citizenship by speaking the truth. And so that if the leader does not listen, we can walk away. We walk away with dignity. There is dignity in poverty, my people. I see it all the time among our people, our common citizen. They suffer with dignity. That dignity itself is something worth embracing. Nothing can buy. You should not sell yourself cheap. Your dignity is who you are. You cannot give that up because you are in a position where you are getting $10,000 a month or $20,000 or even $200,000 a month. Those are Mama Rebecca. They were so courageous, speaking about what is going wrong within the country. Now they are back into their own mother SPLM. They cannot even raise a word about the constitution of SPLM being followed. The other day, it was yesterday, Twitch East community was inaugurating its new leadership. Uncle Kwalmanyang was there, and he was explaining why Kir is the nominee. And basically what he said was that, and I quote, said, we have decided to make Salva Kiir the nominee of the SPLM. And here is why. Salva Kiir has suffered so much. He has suffered. He was a child soldier in the Anyanya one. He fought very hard. Then he came back. And then he rebelled again. And he was in the bush for 21 years. He really suffered. And he stand behind our guy, Dr. John, son of Greta Boer, and he was loyal. So we have to support him. Yeah, Jama, is this really a convincing thing? Are this the way in which we are going to sell ideas and sell candidates? Every Janubi has suffered. I don't undervalue the suffering of the president. He did suffer, but he did not suffer alone. What would you say of the parent that lost all their children, their wives? What would you say? I know one child, one of my friends, he lost his entire family during the war. And then in 2013, because he was loyal in the armed forces, he wanted to serve his country, he also lost limbs. What would you say of that person? If we are rewarding people based on who has suffered the most, would that make any sense, really, in our country? And would the president even be within the top 1 million people of the people that have suffered the most? He will not be. So let us think about how do we move the country forward. Let us not think about the privileges that we have. Many of these veterans, they deserve those privileges. They fear as if there is to be a change today, they will not get those privileges. It's because the country is not organized. Every country is supposed to have a pension system, and we are capable of building it. As we speak, I have been outside here now for 3 years. And all the investors, people that are interested in South Sudan, they have been coming and speaking with me. We have organized now a portfolio for more than $2.5 billion in investments that can cover everything from housing, roads, electricity, railway. Why are we building road in 21st century when everybody is building railways, airports? These people are willing to come with their own money. We have organized finances. These are things to be done immediately moving forward. I don't even need to be president or be in government for this thing to be done. We just need a country that have rule of law, where investors feel if they bring their money in tomorrow, they will not be taken by some military guy or some national security guys and robbed. Country that has values. Why don't we want to build our country? And we will have the pension system. Uncle Kwaldid will retire with dignity in his house and will get his money. The same thing with every one of them. They will get whatever services that they want every single month. They don't need to come and really tell us these things that insult our intelligence. And especially when we revere them and we look up to them as elders, full of wisdom, through the experience of the struggle that they have gone through. So it's a time for all of us to recover our dignity. There is a story in Dinka where a husband and wife that used to love each other so much, when they were dating, after they got married, and you know the challenges of being in a marriage, they were always fighting. The house is full of chaos, you know. And one day, this woman was so frustrated. So she, in the broad daylight, she go and brought those thatch and then burn them to make fire. And then she's going around the house as if she's looking for something. The husband was curious. It's like, what are you looking for? And then she turned and he said, I'm searching for that love that we used to have for one another. Where has it been lost? I asked all our veterans, you know, and not just to criticize only our General Kwalmanya, Uncle Biar Jang Duot, wrote this letter the other day to President on behalf of Twitch East community. Bizarre letter saying the Twitch East community has pulled out of Greater Bor, blah, 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 all the internal Bor Dinka politics. Are they consent of the president? And then in the end saying the entire Twitch community is in the SPLM and behind the president. Where does he leave other sons of Twitch that are not behind the president and who are clearly people like Dengises who are supporting Riek Machar, other people that are supporting different parties? They are sons of the Twitch. We should not be bringing our communities into politics. I ask all those veterans to light those thatch, search in the house for their dignity. Where has it been lost? Has it been lost just because of oil money? Has it been lost because of fear of the national security? They are your own fellow brothers. When I was in prison, I was detained alongside with them. You know, they're our brothers. They also need to show where their dignity has been lost. And let us find that dignity, because it's with that dignity that we can move forward. Our president has done enough for the country. We are putting on him a burden that he cannot cover, a burden that he cannot carry. It's too heavy for him. He's not prepared for it. It requires a different generation. It requires different people with different mindsets and different ideas. And our country is so blessed with so many that can do it. So let's give ourselves a chance so that we build our country instead of holding it behind in the yoke of war, greed, tribalism, and regionalism. Let's forget about Nuerism, Dinkaism, Baragazalism, Equatorialism. All of those, they do not matter. They prevent us from our true identity, and that is South Sudanese identity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Biar. Indeed, it's a deep statement that this general of veterans, not only them, even young, our age mates that actually managed to maneuver and made their way to the government and sit in the kitchen. They're also keeping quiet, and their dignity also got lost in between in the quest for wealth. So everyone, if you're South Sudanese, take that message critically. We need to light all our candles and start looking for that dignity across South Sudan, across our offices, across our houses. Thank you so much for that. Abraham, will it seem like you want to interject, or if you are fine, then we can move to the next question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, the next questions, that will be our last questions, and maybe invite questions from Clubhouse and also the online viewers, especially our audience on Facebook. It's about elections. You have touched base on the rallies and why the rallies is on, and yet there is nothing that has been done that show people that we are prepared for an election. Speaking to the public does not convince the people who knows the electoral process that we are ready for election. There must be some law that should be passed, and there are some institutions that should be reconstituted in order to also arrange the process of elections. Remember, 2023 is almost done. And by 2024 will be the typical year of campaign. Edmund Yakani, I will begin this question with you simply because you are inside and you know what is happening in and out. And on the same note, Dr. Biar and Awuolic are being regarded as opposition to the government. And they will come in after you said what is actually going on. Edmund Yakani, before Pope entered to South Sudan visit, the Rome peace process was suspended. And once the Pope landed in South Sudan, it was uplifted and was actually reopened. To the extent the government sent the delegation to Rome. Thereafter, nothing has been heard again in regard to the Rome negotiation. Alongside other people that are not contented with the affairs of the nation outside the government. On the same side, on the same note, actually, we have army forces that need to be integrated, which was said to be after 2 weeks during the Pope visit, that everything will be done after 2 weeks. And you know, it has been 2 weeks since even the roadmap declaration in Freedom Hall. It was said 2 weeks. Now all these things seem like they were trashed in the dustbin, and the line now we are focusing is election. Seriously, Edmund, are we ready for election? And if yes, are these things need to be followed or just to be forgotten and move on, including the whole out groups? Are these people not part of political game in South Sudan? Thank you.
Thank you very much for raising that question. I want just give a bit of clarity to my brother Peter Biar. When I was using the word both, I'm not using for campaign, I'm not using for the threats, because I reserve my threats towards the answer of the elections. So there's a total difference between the way how SPLMIO conduct their campaigns. Their campaigns never hold any language of threat. The campaign never hold any language of nomination. They're establishing their political presence like is allowed for every party. So that's the difference that I'm using the word both. I'm not comparing them that they're of equally standard as what happened in WOW. What happened in WOW is different. And I reserve the section of the threats that my brother Awuolic brought back because I want to bring to the elections. And I want to do that with comparison of 2013. If you see the scenario of 2013, how it happened, like if you start connecting it with WOW, and that tells you really how almost the same scenario is building up. And I like your ideology of putting what you call Baharagazalism. That concept is the same thing which disturbed in your Quran, because I'm an observer when the events are going in your Quran, where you can see regionalism within one party structure, and that's raised the question you have raised is where are the laws, where are the manifestos, where are the code of conduct that act as a sample of a party instrument that once they assume the state, they may use the same instruments running the state, the constitution, the other existing laws. The internal democracy of a party determines the way how the party is going to run the state once they're given the state or the government. So I agree with you there, my brother Peter Biar. So just what I want to say that when I would that use both, I'm not using both in the sense of the element of threats, the element of campaign. They're totally different. I use just only established in the office, and I've not done any region. So that's just clarity I want to clarify so that I've not taken by out of context. One like to say if you see the environment we are in, and when I refer to environment, I would like to refer to environment in two ends. Environment in terms of legal framework and in terms of institutional setup. That's the first. Anybody who think about electoral calendar, these are the first thing you look at. Are there existing laws for the conduct of elections? And remember, when you talk of existing laws for the conduct of elections, you're not only limiting yourselves at laws that directly speaks to elections. There are other laws that have implications on the conduct of elections. What is it? For instance, the National Electoral Law, as we speak per now, is still before the Parliament. The Political Parties Council Act, the Political Parties Council Act is already passed and signed by the President into a law, but it's not translated into function. How it's supposed to be translated into a function is supposed to be the reconstruction of the Political Parties Act. So the Political Parties Act will ask the political parties, per the rules and regulations that develop out of the Act, on how to register and how to conduct themselves in the next political milestones that are in front of them, and which one of them is elections. That's not in place. The second thing is that if you look at the electoral process, Constitution is a prerequisite for elections. Constitution is a precondition. We're not supposed to conduct elections under the Constitution. Now, if you look at the Constitution Act, it's already ready, but the Constitution Act is not taken into operation. How can it be taken into operation? Is reconstitute the National Constitution Review Commission. That's also not in place. So this all mounting to define to the legal framework. Besides that, you have other laws. What are the other laws? The National Security Act. One particular provision is pulled out of it in terms of like they can't arrest anybody without warrant of arrest. But that's a very critical law with regard to elections. The National Police Service Act. How does it speak to elections? Because they play a big role in providing safety and protection of elections. Even our military. The National People Defense Force Act. These are all other laws that it have implications on the conduct of elections, because if a ballot box is in the barracks, how are you going to observe? And if you say, for example, military sites cannot be visited by civilians. So besides having the electoral law, which is not yet in function, and remember, because the electoral law is not in function, that means what? The National Electoral Commission is not yet in function. And if the National Electoral Commission is not yet in function, it means resourcing the National Election Commission to conduct business within the period of 12 months. Is it something realistic? Those are critical questions in terms of the legal and institutional framework that we need to think about it. So what does it mean? It means when you look at that particular angle of only look at the legal and institutional framework around the language of the elections, and if you look at other institutions and other laws that need to come to existence to create conducive environment for elections, automatically the next thing is the unification of the forces. As we speak now, we don't have only one commander-in-chief. We have more than one commander-in-chief. Okay? Within SOA, there are commanders-in-chief. There are quite a number of commanders-in-chief of those parties of SOA that come as a coalition. Now, this goes back to what Abraham have raised as a question. Who delayed the unification? Obviously, somebody else have to be held responsible in delaying the unification. And on top is the president. And that's what normal. I used to tell people that when discuss about blames, for me, the blames goes to the presidency, those who sit at the presidency. Biar have responded to the question of Her Excellency from Rebecca. She sits in the presidency. Those are the group that make really critical decisions in the fate of the country in terms of implement the agreement. So if you see conducive environment for elections is considered the following. Let me give just 5 only out of the many. Open, free, political and civic space, unified security and defense sector, reconstitution of the institutions, and they need to be resources. What are these institutions? For example, if I can select few of them, the National Election Commission, the Political Parties Council, and they should be reconstituted in line with the constitutions because they need to develop rules and regulations for their businesses to discipline political parties towards elections. Are these in place? Not yet. These are 3 that I've chosen out of the 5. And besides that, you need to think about how are you going to handle the question of constitution. And I'd like to share with you, I was in an event with some MPs, some politicians, some academia, religious leaders. We raised a question. Do you want appointed MPs to handle your constitutions, or do you want elected MPs to handle your constitutions? Many people say, no, we better go with elected MP, because elected MP, at least we can hold them accountable than the appointed. And of course, within our 550 MPs in the National Parliament and 600 in the Council of State, some of them are politicians mobilized through phone call. They have never even seen a political party manifesto or binding principle or anything. You just call Edmund, where are you? I'm in Nairobi. We have a city. Are you ready to be an MP? I accept, yes. I fly in with my codes. I find myself I'm a politician in the parliament, and I'm handling those issues without knowing the party I belong to, whether it have its basic regulations. So all those are the things that you need to put into account. So I would like to tell you that the conducive environment for the conduct of elections, if it will be created within the period of 6 months, then you can say, yes, we can have credible, peaceful, and fair elections. 6 months when? It starts from today until December. You can create that condition. But if you look at the electoral calendar and if you look at electoral experts normally will tell that in a country where electoral commission, it have history of conducting elections like Kenya, where electoral commission exists and is functional, not like ours, by the way. Our electoral commission is not in function. Even where about there, nobody knows because they've been kicked out of the house where they're in. Whether they're in briefcase right now or where, we don't know, but we can see that there's people who claim I'm a chairperson, but physical, where they, for you to visit them, they're not there. Political parties, the same cancer, the same thing. I was asking the registrar of the political parties, where is your office? Say, no, Central Equatorial kicked us out of the office. So now, where are you holding the council? Is it in your pocket or is it in a briefcase? So, with that, those existing institutions, experts used to say at least you need 2 years planning. We're left with less than 18 months or 12 months planning. And remember, the infrastructure we have is challenging. And besides this, look at the budget. If you talk of elections in the current context, what does the budget need to tell citizens? Look at the value that is allocated for election in the budget. 280 million. What does that mean? Is that real? Is that real, really? Look at the budget. Look at the figure of the budget. And look at the context we're in, where the institution does not exist, the human resources doesn't exist, even the infrastructure for running elections. What type of system are we going to get? Let me use a simple word. Even laptops for electoral staff are not yet in place. Then look at what is the budget. So what elections are we talking about? And that's why we're saying, yes, election is really a very good political exit strategy. If we are able to demonstrate political commitment, political discipline, political maturity, which I can sum them up as a political will. Okay? So if we are able to demonstrate this, then we can say in the 6 months, if you can create, and it's the same language I used when the roadmap was extended, was given the chance to speak. I say, what miracle are you going to do in the 24 months that you failed to do in the last 3 years? So what miracle are we going to do in the next 6 months? So that's, and I remember the speech of the president when he was speaking in WOW, he said they're going to coordinate with the political parties to look into the constitution, as if the constitution is an instrument of political parties. Constitution is a citizen instrument that we need to focus it. Now, that's what I'm saying. Secondly, if we speak about elections, something very simple that normally I used to talk to people, that many people believe that electoral-related violence starts on the day of casting the vote. No. Electoral-related violence is actually started right from the attitudes when they're thinking about the election. It all takes me back to what Awuolic have talked about, the statement of the president, wow, which is posting threats. So when you start language of threatening, a preparation for electoral process by itself is a declaration of electoral-related violence. So language matters a lot. Language that creates an environment for people to be feeling that we are going for a political, healthy competition for transfer of power peacefully, honorably, is different from the language where you want to post a threat. In order to know, we have seen the threat coming up that Awuolic have mentioned. I agree with him. That's really a language that really posed a very big question about the behaviors towards the elections. If we're going to have a free and fair and peaceful elections, that's what I'd like to say, what I'm seeing here. So for me is that there's one position that is contradictory, so I want to bring forward. The opposition in all, and not only opposition that in terms of the seeking to revitalize peace agreement, in the different groups, we're saying as long the prerequisite, the preconditions for the conduct of the election as ensuring the agreement is not yet met, we don't feel there's going to be elections. And I think it's a realistic position, by the way. And that only not opposition that's seeking to the revitalize agreement, every constituencies that are there. My brother Peter Biar is here, my brother Abraham Awuolic is here, they define a constituency. Now, when you talk about the whole out group, and for me, it's not only the whole out group, even other voices are legitimate for the electoral process. Their position is required. You see, like as I speak now, we are building a new momentum among ourselves, religious leaders, is that let us create a platform where we can call what we call election consensus initiative, where we need to bring everybody on board, because you can't conduct an election and ignore one constituency and say we are in a free and fair elections. No. Everybody have to have a space in the elections, and everybody's voice have to be heard. Being it Peter Biar, being it Abraham Awuolic, being everybody, being a civil society, being religious leaders, being diaspora, being even groups who have defined themselves politically but not in country. All these, we need to bring them on board so that the elections get what you call citizens' trust and confidence. Because once you start losing slowly trust of the citizens and confidence towards the electoral process, that electoral process results is questionable. And otherwise, we're losing trust and confidence over that. So that's what I'd like to say that I've seen inside that actually the preparation to create what I can term as a good enough condition for the conduct of the elections. Yes, we know elections all over the world does not have one standard in terms of being free, fair, or peaceful. But at least there's a basic things. What are these basic things? Number one, open political and civic space for all actors, being political or non-political. Two, you need to have a unified security and defense institutions behind creating an environment that does not discriminate any political player in the electoral process or does not favor one single political player. Three, you need to have enough resourced electoral institutions as number three, that you make sure that these electoral institutions are resourced. And you need to have a law to govern the elections. Finally, you need to have something like code of conduct for all the political players to say, we respect the electoral process and we commit ourselves to respect the outcome of the elections. Are those things in place? I will say over 70% are not in place. We have bits here, partial. Electoral Act is ready, electoral, Political Party Act is ready, political party is not reconstituted. Constitutional Act is ready, Constitutional Review Commission is not reconstituted. The National Election Law is in the Parliament, the National Election Commission, we don't know where it is. First batch of unified forces is graduated, but they're not redeployed, and we're going for the second phase, and elections are coming. So all these are factors that contribute in defining whether we have conducive environment for elections or not. So my conclusion is that what is called conducive environment for the conduct of election by December 2024 up to now is not yet in place. And if we have energy to create it within the next 12 months, then we say well and good that we are there for elections. But with elections that we must embrace every voice, every player, and we must not create restrictions. And must not be selective, by the way, because the behaviors of political being selectivity is coming towards the elections. I'm already hearing the languages come from different political actors, like here we are okay, here we are not okay, this group is like this group. So we should not be selective. Election is a clean playing field politically for healthy competition, for peaceful and honorable transfer of power. This is why I will end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edmund Yakani, for actually touching all the challenges that are actually at hand currently, of which they require our government to give attention to them before moving toward the campaign. All in all, citizens are ready to vote. This is what they have been looking for the last 12 years. See, the independent, they're ready to vote for their leaders. So it is not a big deal for them to be mobilized to come and vote, but the big deal is to arrange the process, make the road clear, convince them that we have done 1, 2, 3 steps, and now we are calling you to come and vote. They will not even campaign for like 2 months because they have nothing to campaign about. It's just to call them, come and vote, and they will still vote who they vote for or who they vote against. Thank you for that. We move to Abraham Awuolic. Kindly give us your thoughts in regard to the elections, and also considering you as a member of People's Coalition for Civil Actions. You are still outside South Sudan, and you have taken a vow to protect the nation through telling the people of South Sudan and the government that you are doing this wrong, you are doing this right, and the citizens need to stand up and do 1, 2, 3 for their nation. Are you okay with the elections going on while you're outside South Sudan, or you are ready to go back to the country and participate fully in the affairs of the election? So the chance is short, Abraham Awuolic. Meanwhile, you'll give me 1 minute while you are talking to look for a charger because the conversation is getting hot. Thanks.
Right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I appreciate my colleague Edmund Yakani and also Peter for speaking candidly about the affairs of our country. That is what is required. Though it may be hated, it is necessary. It has to be done. Now, on the election, Edmund Yakani, I agree with the list of the conditions that you have met, but you have left out the number one condition for election, and that is there must be peace. Peace must first exist, and the unity of people must first exist before you think about having an election. South Sudan, as we speak, does not have peace. We have a peace agreement on a paper, but we don't have a peace agreement in people's hearts and minds. So that, I think, is important. And if unity of the people and peace are a precondition, then the parties to the peace agreement are a faction. There is still a big constituency of South Sudanese who are not happy with the state of affairs. And these include the non-signatories and other opposition groups that are not part of the Article right now. So there must be a condition where these people are part of the process, both the constitutional making process and the elections. So I would say the number one condition for election in South Sudan is the unity of the people and peace. And those things do not exist right now. So that is number one. Number two, and I'm in agreement with Edmund Yakani, there are certain conditions that are not yet made available in South Sudan for us to even think about an election. The first of them is that the peace agreement talks about the establishment of a constitutional court. I have not heard about an act of parliament or the constitution of such court. And the reason you need that court is to have a court during the constitutional making process, as well as during the elections process. There is a court that deals directly with matters related with the elections and the law. And now, if you are aggrieved after that court, you go to the Supreme Court. So that court does not exist. And I would say the reforms that are required in the judiciary do not exist. And unfortunately, our Chief Justice, and I'm saying this now publicly on behalf of the PCCA, we are actually calling for the Chief Justice of South Sudan to resign or to step aside because he attended the SPLM rally in Wau. I have not confirmed also, but there were rumors that the current chair of the Elections Commission attended the SPLM rally in Wau. The chief of police, the inspector of police also attended the rally in Wau. I don't know if the chief of defense and the national security also attended those rallies. And the reason why I single these people out is because when we are talking about the state, this is the state. It is the army, it is the police, it is the justice system, especially the courts, and it is the police. This is what we call a state. They are not part of the government. They are not political. They are neutral. And if a chief justice attends a rally of a political party, obviously he has rendered himself partisan. And as a result, and ethically, and this man was trained in Harvard, so we know he went to the best law school in the world. He has violated all the ethical questions related to the neutrality of a judge. And this is in addition to the fact that he previously was appointed as a chairman of his local community. And we know that leaders of local community are not just mere leaders. They are also engaged in the political processes within those communities, and they interact with the state. So I think one can say without any question that our country is in trouble. If the Chief Justice is partisan and is a member of a political party and can attend rallies of his political party, then we should conclude that there should be no election, because where are you going to adjudicate the case? So that is a big cloud. And if the chairman of the election commission also attended the rally, then really that is a disaster. The same thing with the chief of police. When we talk about the rule of law, it is all these state institutions, including the army. They are really not part of the political process. They are the state. And that is why usually when they call the president, they call him head of state and government. These are two separate things. And that is why in countries where they have prime ministers, as well as the monarchy is the head of state, but the prime minister is the head of government. These are two things. Government is political, state is neutral. State protects all. So I can say that even before I look at which law exists, the personalities that are involved in the enforcement of electoral law have just violated all those things in a broad daylight. And they have rendered themselves untrustworthy of being given this platform to adjudicate or to oversee the elections. So that is number two. Number three, the government of national unity made a request to the UN to seek assistance. That request was a violation of the peace agreement, because the agreement specifically said the body that has legitimacy to forward that request is the reconstituted electoral commission. So why is the government making that request? And the body that is supposed to do this doesn't exist. So why is that? That is a violation. And it goes to punch a hole into the credibility and the thinking of those who want to organize the election. They are rigging it already through the process. They should not have made these requests, and they should not have been involved in anything to do with the preparation and organization of the election. There is a body that deals with that. The fact that it is the government doing it is already a violation of that elections. And therefore, the trust of the intentions of those who are calling for election has already been put into question. Now, the fourth issue is, it comes to the SPLM now. We all know all over the world, the body that has the power and the responsibility to declare when the elections is to be conducted and when political campaigns are open is the Elections Commission. This body does not exist right now. So where did the SPLM get the idea that there will be election and that the campaigns are now open and that somebody is to be endorsed or nominated? Where is that coming from? That is a disregard for the rule of law. And it therefore adds to the credibility of the intentions of those who want to call for an election. The election is already rigged even before the body that is empowered to do this election is in place. Somebody is acting on behalf of that body, and that is the SPLM and the president. And that is a violation. Should not be accepted, and therefore it should constitute the basis for anyone who want to be genuine in participating in this election to reject this process. It is fraud already. Now, number 6, the president has already, as Peter Biar has already mentioned, has violated the SPLM constitution. The SPLM constitution is clear. Elections processes, they start at the Boma level. The Boma is the one that convened first and nominate candidates to the county, and the county nominates candidates to the state, and the state nominates candidates. And when I'm talking about candidates, these are not candidates for election. These are candidates to the convention. And that convention at each level of the primaries decides and nominate people who are going to be their candidates, flag bearers. And so in the end, when the national convention is convened, those who are contesting for the party chairmanship now put their names forward. So how does the president get the nomination? There is no convention. That is a violation, Yajama. This country, there was one candidate, I'm not going to name him here, who used to say that his country was being raped. This is rape right here. This process is raping of a system. And when we are talking about rape here, it's not necessarily related to any relations between people, but it is an act that violates the established norm. So people are operating outside the law in South Sudan. And the president is the champion of this violation of all these institutional laws that have been established. And so I don't want to elongate my talk, but I want to say that we have started on a wrong footing. And this goes back to my colleague, Edmund Yakani. Even if the president were to open a political space today, the process it will take for Peter Biar to get home and to now establish himself as a candidate if he wants to run, there is no time. So already the process is rigged. You need ample time, and the political space need to open for 3, 4, 5 years so that people can establish themselves. Suppose they say, okay, everything is delayed until mid-2024. You are talking July, and now they pass the constitution. Now they pass the Election Commission Act. Now they constitute those things and write everything and say we are going to have an election. Would that be fair? But that is what we call rigging, because there is one party who is way ahead, and Adija had a cartoon a couple of weeks back where the running line, everybody was on that running line, but the SPLM was like 500 meters ahead of the running line. I would even help Adija to say there is no running line. So, because there is no announcement of running, it's the SPLM that has announced that there is running, and they started running before everybody arrives, and before those who demarcate the line of the starting line, before they could even come to do the line. So anyway, I want to leave space to my brother Peter Biar. I definitely, in my personal capacity, in the position of the PCCA, we would not support this election. And the reason is simple. There is no election. This is a charade. This is a rigged game. And it is there to give legitimacy to President Kiir, who definitely cannot genuinely run and win an election in South Sudan. And that makes me now to add my voice to Peter Biar. If the leaders of the SPLM are genuine to themselves, and if President Kiir is genuine and honest to himself, he cannot put his name as a candidate for this election. That is just not acceptable. After all, the man has not offered anything so far in terms of what he is going to do. He has 12 years. Let us say this is 12 years. And the only thing the man offers to the people of South Sudan is a complaint that the Riek Machar and the opposition have destroyed the country. That is why we have not, it was in this speech. That's why we have not done any development. What are you talking about, man? So the president is running on the ticket of complaining that some people have destroyed South Sudan, and that's why he was not able to do it. And he doesn't offer you how he's going to stop those people from destroying South Sudan, and what he is going to do now to make South Sudan a better place. So the president has lived beyond his usefulness to the people of South Sudan, and the time has come for him to go home. He should not declare himself a candidate. And as soon as he declares himself a candidate, that election is null and void, because he is going to rig it, because he knows he cannot win a free and fair election. And so on basis of that, the PCCA and the citizens that support the voice of the PCCA We will not stand for this election. We will not support it. It is not genuine, and there is no ground for it. And the rules have all been violated, and we must hold those who are violating the rules accountable. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abraham Awuolic. That the system has already been raped, especially the elections or election process, actually. Yeah, thank you for your remark and thank you for your information. South Sudanese who are watching now will take it that way, because as PCCA, you are not part of the elections and you are not supporting the election due to the reasons that you just mentioned. Back to Dr. Peter Biar. You'll be the last man on that questions, and then we'll wrap it up with our last parting shots, and we will go to do other things. I know you are busy, but you have just given us this time to come and talk to your fellow South Sudanese. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brother Abraham Awuolic and Edmund Yakani, for your thoughtful reflections. I really appreciate the views that you have added in. And I really encourage our people who are listening in South Sudan to open such a space. Let us talk. Let us discuss our nation. Even if we don't automatically end up having elections, I think these kind of conversations are useful. Even when they are not implemented, I know Abraham Awuolic put a lot of time in the conduct of the national dialogue. And the resolution of those national dialogue are out there for people to see and to listen. And although they are not implemented, I would not say that that exercise was a waste of time. It was very important for people to hear themselves and for people to reflect on where the country is going. On the election, there was a study that was done by David Deng and a group of scholars. They use opinion surveys to ask people of South Sudan in 10 counties in 10 states what their views are with the elections. Overwhelming majority of our people said that they wanted election. Even if the election will result in violence, even if they may not be free or fair, they want them. Now, why would people want that? People want that because people feel that they are stuck. They have no voice anymore in a country that they liberated with their blood, sweat, and tears. Country that cost so much for them to achieve. And once they achieve it, their power was taken from them by the leaders. That is why we have a government with 5 vice presidents, all of whom are appointed by warring factions. That is why we have a cabinet that is appointed by warring faction. That is why we have a parliament that is appointed by warring factions. A parliament in which people are there not to serve the communities from which they come, but so that they can serve the leaders that appointed them. That is why we have governors that are not elected, governors that are appointed because they are serving their political masters. That is why we have state members of parliament that are not elected, but they are appointed to serve their masters. The same thing with commissioners, all the way to the local government. I said before that we establish a government, we establish a country, but what I didn't say was that what we establish doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't function for the common man. It has no value. So our people feel with that election, even if it's not free or fair, even if there may be violence, they may at least have some power to shape their future. And for that, I support election 100%. Now, our president also won election. He's out there already campaigning. It was interesting listening to Awuolic describe a DJ cartoon, and he's 100% spot on. Now, why does the president won election? Is it the same reason why the people of South Sudan won elections? No. It is because we have been saying over and over again that he is not a legitimate president, that he was never elected by the people of South Sudan. And that is true, is the reality. He was never elected because we got the country in 2011, and we have not been able to have elections since then. And he is there in power because of peace agreement, because of creating crisis, because of all these problems that have been happening there. And the international community finally realized what we are saying is the truth. And Our president is seen as not a legitimate president. He's not put in the same category of legitimacy as someone like William Ruto, for example, might be put in. He's not legitimate. He's not different from Burhan in Sudan. He's a legitimate president. He is there by appointment, and since then, he has not delivered on the mandate for which he was appointed, which was to build institutions and help to organize free and fair elections. And he has not since come back to ask his people to vote for him. So he wants election because he wants legitimacy. He wants the people of South Sudan to say that he was elected and he was a duly elected president. He wants the international community to believe that he is a duly elected president. So this is his interest. Now, if that is his interest, how can he actually achieve that? Because if the president continue with the process that he has now started, with this endorsement in WOW, when people know SPLM constitution is not just only hidden in Juba, everybody has it, including the international community that is trying to convince that he is now a legitimately elected president. They have the SPLM constitution and they can read how SPLM candidates are supposed to be nominated. So if he doesn't follow that, and then, as Awuolic and Yakani has mentioned, different requirements that need to be done, new constitution, unification of armed forces, passing of the National Election Act, reconstitution of the National Election Commission, reconstitution of the political parties council, some form of census or data to determine how many people are in each constituency, what are the number of the voters, and how do you actually allocate seats among the people of South Sudan across regions, across tribe, and so forth. When we have refugees, like especially from Greater Upper Nile and Greater Equatoria that have been displaced, and even, by the way, Greater Barghazal, a lot of people were displaced not by conflict in Barghazal, but by hunger. And they went to Sudan, and now a lot of those people are coming back. Those people are not there to vote. So how is this going to happen? When you have a country with crisis, like right now, we have so many crises on top, which is the crisis in Sudan, that is flooding the country with weapons. All the small arms from Sudan are flowing into South Sudan right now. Refugees are there. We have economic crisis. We have humanitarian crisis that the government is not even addressing. In the speech that the president issued yesterday, he only called on the international community to come and do something. He hasn't offered what he's going to do as the government of South Sudan. Now he wants to do those elections without those things. Now, when he does those things and he ends up doing election, what is going to happen? Nothing is going to change, right? Because the processes in which he is trying to get elected are not legitimate. First of all, his own party, SPLM, is going to fall apart. Because even if there are people that may not want to be president and they have given up, he's there, they don't want to challenge him, he's the president, the fact that he was not duly nominated is going to be a problem. But second, the example that he has set as the president and the chair of the party, and don't forget now in the SPLM, they no longer have an elected chair in the state. It's whoever that has been appointed by the degree of the president that automatically become the chairman of the SPLM in that state. Just imagine that. The members of the SPLM in that state have no right to elect who the chairman is. It's whoever that has been appointed by the degree that automatically become the chair of the party in that state. In a state that the SPLM-IO control or the other political parties control, like Jonglei, which is controlled by the opposition alliance, is the deputy governor that is automatically the chair, because the deputy governor is appointed there now by the SPLM. Just let that sink in for a bit. Now, what is the example that the president has said going to do? The governors are going to do the same, because some of these governors are not the most popular people in their states. If the citizens or the members of the SPLM in that state are asked to vote on who should be the candidate, the SPLM flag bearer, either for the position of governor, commissioners, members of parliament, those people are not popular. And some of these people have been there over and over again. They've been recycled and recycled. People are basically just tired of them. So what is going to happen? These governors are going to take the example of president and do their own rallies in their states and then say they have been endorsed by the SPLM members, and then deploy the security forces, to intimidate other members of their own party, SPLM. This is likely to happen. What will that do? People are going to defect. Worse, people may even rebel. But we are cautioning our people not to rebel because we have fought for too long and that is not taking us anywhere. So that is going to destroy the SPLM. And if the SPLM-IO does the same thing, that will destroy the SPLM-IO as well. And now, let's say someone like Dr. Riak or other leaders begin doing actual congresses at the local level. That is going to be so exciting for those people that feel excluded by the position and the process that the president and the chairman of the SPLM has taken. These people now will feel they can go somewhere where they can be competitive, where people can actually compete on ideas, not based on who suffered the most and therefore should be given the position, right? As the logic of the SPLM uncles are, people are going to contest. What are you going to do for the country? What is your idea of making our unity possible as Junubin? How do we build our economy? How do we employ the youth? In fact, for me, these are the issues I want to talk about. How do we build our economy and make sure that all these young people of South Sudan have a chance to build wealth, to build themselves, and so that they are able to use their energy and God-given potential to the maximum that they can, and that they will have a government that will be behind them, that will go to every extreme length to make it possible for them to succeed in whatever they put their mind into. These are the things we should be talking about. But they are not going to be possible in the SPLM for people to talk about because they have a leader who does not want to talk about issues. He would rather want to narrate the stories of how he and John Garang and Carbino Kwanyin, Arok Thon Arok, and all those guys, they have gone and they walk, and then their car in Malakal, they had to leave their car, push it in the river, and then walk, and then they have to destroy this village. Then they capture that town, forgetting that majority of people that are going to vote are people that were born probably from 1995 onwards. They don't remember all these things that they want to talk about. And what they want to talk about is what is going to happen to their economy. We have a capital city that has no sewage system. It has not even occurred to our leadership for 12 years that you can actually build sewage system. Everybody have their shit in their house. You get yourself a tank, you take it, you go and dump it on the Yei Road. For those in Jongle, you go and jump it on the road of Atir. Smell terrible. Is polluting underground water. We have a country that is affected by the climate change, and with the leadership that has no ability whatsoever to unlock some of the international funds that exist for this purpose and that can enable our people to build a climate resilient economy. We are in 21st century where people are talking about artificial intelligence, where economies are transitioning to a newer level of productivity. Will we always just be saying we are poor, we are a baby, when we are 12-year-old? We are adolescents. When you become adolescent, you stop being a child. You stop acting like a child. You take responsibilities for your action. So this requires us as citizens to do that. So if the elections are going to happen and the president is not following a process that can actually give him legitimacy, I'm not saying that he should not run. I have said many times, I talk about generational exit, the national dialogue, talk about them leaving. They don't want to listen. And what I wanted to avoid when I was talking about generational exit is the possibility of competing with people like my father, people like my uncles, people like my father-in-law. But they don't want to listen. They feel entitled that the country is theirs because they fought, forgetting, what about someone like me, someone like Abraham Awuolic? When I quoted before Kwalmanyang saying Salva Kiir has suffered and he suffered so much and therefore he should be leader. I was now reflecting about my own journey. Entering a Red Army as a child, mere child, being forced to bury bodies, being there.
Much younger than I was.
I know, like they say, imagine we are burying bodies. We are taking care of ourselves. We are walking hundreds and hundreds. Imagine people who came from Awuolic. I was always struck by that when I met my brothers in the Red Army from Awuolic, walking all the way from that border of Sudan to Ethiopia on foot, and they are kids, 9 years old, 8 years old, 10. Many died along the way, but God preserved them. And then, after the 1991 defection of Riek Machar and us turning against each other and killing each other, many of us became child soldiers. Now we are forced to carry guns. We have to defend the country. We have to shoot. We lost our entire childhood. We did not have a childhood. And in fact, it's really because of God's grace that we are even talking and sharing ideas. We otherwise would be running mad on the street, given what we saw at the age we saw it. And then now we're entering adulthood. We left to come to America. We could not even enjoy being a teenager so that you can go to club, drink alcohol, smoke weed, all those things that we see now the children of our generals and our presidents are doing. Yeah? The other day, people had to be lifted because of alcohol to other parts. Some of our age mates. We didn't have that life. We didn't even enjoy. We had to think about the war in South Sudan. Awuolic, myself, Valentino, Ajak, bunch of us, we put ourselves together, going around, talking with members of Congress, talking to American people, going to churches, going to nursing home, talking about how the national Islamic regimes of Sudan is wiping out our people and why our people should be supported, because we have this vision to build a democracy. This is what we devoted our 20s doing, making sure that this country called South Sudan become a reality. It was not just done by the SPLM uncles in Juba. We play a huge role. And if they don't want to acknowledge, God Almighty one day will acknowledge the role that we play as Red Army and as Lost Boys. But even on top of that, after we got the degrees from schools, we went back into Juba. We went to the ministries of finance, national security, started think tanks, offering ideas of how our country should move, putting ourselves out there, doing the best we can so that we make it possible for the vision for which our people sacrifice so much to be a reality. What happened? They start locking us up because our ideas are too crazy. Yes, they are good, but the time has not come. When is the time that these ideas are supposed to come? What is that time? Then trying to kill us. Awuolic has to run so that he can get out without being killed. Others were not so fortunate. You know very well how many of our colleagues have been killed. And for what? Simply because we want things to be done better. Have we not also suffered? Now we are in our 40s. Life has gone. We don't even know what we have accomplished. None of us have a house. We are renting. We have no money. We are just on the bridge of poverty. Despite our intelligence, our amazing academic achievements, because we have given it all for South Sudan. Is it really true that Salva Kiir is the one that has suffered the most and therefore should be given the presidency of South Sudan as his personal reward? What about a child like Awuolic? What about our colleagues that did not even get a chance to come to America? They remain in the armed forces, fighting to the last day the agreement was signed. Many who has lost limbs. They have become traumatized by the conflict. We should have empathy and humility. And if our uncles have become so distorted that they have lost their dignity and the reverence that we have for them, then we as young people, we must remember the dignity of our ancestors. Those like Awuolic, Awuolic, they are my neighbors. The great chief, Konanok, led a war against the British with the spears, bow and arrows. And he made an alliance with my great-grandfather, Biar. They fought together against the British. They were both arrested and brought to Mangala, where they were detained. Konanok was not so fortunate. He was hanged. My grandfather, afterward, he was released, but then he was very sick and he died not long afterward. These were men of dignity. They knew what it meant to die with dignity. I think what we need in South Sudan, to be honest, we need election. But what we must demand is political space and fair competition. No child like to question his father. No child like to be put in a position where he has to go against his father. But when the father has lost empathy, has lost humanity, that sometimes is the only option left. I personally, I support elections, and my message to the youth of South Sudan: prepare yourself. Let's demand for this election to be free and fair. Let's do our level best. And let's take that country back and build it so that it becomes a mighty nation, fear far and wide, as Prophet Isaiah has mentioned in the Bible. That story will always be there. That is who we are as people of South Sudan. That is the ideal that we must meet, and we are capable of doing it. Let us not be afraid. Death is not the end of life. We believe in God. And although people may take our life, they can never take our freedom. We have to rediscover our dignity, who we are as a people. And through this process of election, God is giving people of South Sudan a second chance. Let us not lose faith. Let's believe in Him. And this process is started with all of us. I am challenging members of the SPLM that believe that they are patriotic to open a case at the High Court challenging the purported nomination of Salva Kiir. I know the judiciary is not independent. Chief Justice was there. National security is not independent. The head of it was also there in WOW. All these guys, they were there in WOW. And it's not just only that. They are invited to any SPLM event in Juba. They attend. They're summoned to go because they don't understand that they are not members of the SPLM. SPLM has confused the whole country because what is SPLM? SPLM is our collective legacy. All of us build SPLM to be what it is. It's the blood of our sons and daughters that made SPLM to be SPLM. But we did not build it so that Salva Kiir become king and so that a few people can just loot the resources of the country, use the same resources to buy us, to buy our dignity, treat us as if we are rubbish, and incite us to hold on to tribalism, regionalism, to hate our brothers. Can you imagine what this will do? Sectarianism, thinking that others are better. Now, if we think that we Dinka, or it was first the Nilotics, are better than others, and then now it become, oh, we Dinka are better. And then now the Dinka divide itself, it become the Dinka of Barghazal that is better. Then it will become the Dinka Rek is better. And ultimately it will come to be the Dinka of Gogrial. And then it will become to a one. This is what has happened in Khartoum. We should learn from that experience. And I have been to Barghazal. Awuolic is my great friend. So many friends from Warab, so many friends from Awil. In fact, I was attending Awil annual meeting here in the United States last week. I love that region. It's full of great people. Let them not be used by Salva Kiir to perpetuate division, corruption, violence, and to hold South Sudan back in darkness. People of Barghazal are great people. Independence of South Sudan would not have been possible without them. And it's the same thing for people of Upper Nile. And it's the same thing for the people of Equatoria. Let's embrace the nation. Let's not embrace the one individual. Any individual will come and go. The nation will remain. The community will remain. We cannot make communities to serve politicians. It's the politician to serve the communities. This election is our chance, but we have to make it possible. And we have to recognize the reality. The people of South Sudan want change. President Salva Kiir wants legitimacy. The only way these two can be met together, let's invite a third party to come and do this election. Let's invite the United Nations mission in South Sudan to be responsible for the election. That way, If the president truly believes that he is popular and that he has a purpose for the nation, then he will be chosen by the people. I don't want to compete with my father. I don't want to compete with my uncle. But if there is no other choice, and that is the only thing, that is exactly what we will do. So if they want to compete, let them come to compete. But the notion that we are going to be intimidated, that we are going to be bought, that our voices is going to be muzzled is not possible. And I say to my brothers in national security, I am also a founder of that institution. I was there at the establishment of it. Many of these recruit the first batches. Some of them I interviewed them. We didn't build it so that it become a tool of one person. And you are so much more than you think you are. You are not a tool of Salva Kiir. You're not a tool of Riek Machar. You're not a tool of any politician. The same thing with our members in the armed forces. They are not tools. They are patriots. They are people offering themselves and their lives to save the country. Let us get our country back. And let us build it so that it become a country we can all be proud of. This is possible. Let the United Nations come so that they can help us with resources, with budget, so that they create a level playing field for all of us. Let our security forces support, work together with UNMISS forces in providing security. Let's demarcate all the different areas. Let work in a spirit so that if the president wins, we will be able to support him because he will be a legitimate president. But if he loses, he will have no chance whatsoever of taking us back to conflict, because that is what we do not want. We want to move forward. But I do not support the idea of extending and extending and extending. Democracy cannot be delayed forever. And it is a messy process. I know for a fact that the elections are going to have challenges, whether they are held next year, in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, there will be challenge. But they will provide a foundation. That foundation, we can learn from what goes wrong, what will go well. But then we can move forward, making it better, so that the next time we do them, we improve a bit. Look at Kenya. I was in Kenya in 1992 when they did the first election. It was a very messy election. But then they improved with the election of 1997. And by the election of 2002, an opposition candidate won the election. And ever since, Kenyan election have been improving and improving and improving. So let us not keep on delaying this election. Let us begin doing them. But let's do it in a way that even the president who is so thirsty of legitimacy can actually get it if he actually wins. Let us do it in a way that will give dignity to our name, will give dignity to the name of the SPLM and what has accomplished historically, and also do it in a way that will give dignity to the people of South Sudan.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Ajak, for your remark and for also answering the questions of elections, all the way from the assessment which was done in regard to whether they will go for elections or not. And the views of the citizens unanimously agreed that we better go for election than staying in this bureaucratic government where we have over 600 MPs, which were not even elected by the people, and they are not even speaking for the people that elected them. They were appointed and they are speaking for the appointing authorities. Thank you for that. Up to this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, especially our viewers, we have come to the end of our conversations and the celebrations of our Independent Day. But before we end it, we need to give each one of them 2 minutes to give us his closing remark and also give his word of encouragement to South Sudanese who are about to lose hope due to the economic crisis, and those who are actually given up their dignity in exchange of survival. So the three gentlemen will give you what you will start your week with. And if you are a good listener, you will not go empty-handed. You will go with something from them that will build you and that will give you courage to believe that indeed South Sudan will be a better nation. Up to this level, let me start with my colleague, Edmund Yakani. give us your closing remark. I can see the internet is also giving you a time. It's up and on actually. And thereafter we move to Peter Ajak. Then Abraham Awuolic will be the last to give his parting shot. Thank you so much. And I can request my co-host Abraham Adit, if you are there, you can pull up on the studio also, so that we can give word of appreciation to our guests and also to our viewers. Edmund Yakani, the floor is yours.
My closing remark is that if we want the South Sudan that takes us all, let's avoid being silent. Let's avoid being in control in terms of restriction for speech. Let's speak out. Speaking is more powerful than the bullet in the bushes. If we can keep on speaking on the reality of our nation, we can build consensus. All countries have undergone this. Bullet is not more important than telling the truth and standing for the truth. Yes, we may have diversion in ideas, but at the end of the day, as if we speak to each other without any restrictions, without any fear, we can reach consensus. That's the first thing I'd like to tell every South Sudanese: don't remain quiet. Silence is not the option. Speaking is much more better than the bullet in the bush. That's one thing I'd like to say. Second, I'd say, let's keep engaged. Let's keep engaged. Let's not distance ourselves from the reality. Let's keep engaged. Let's speak out. Let's follow up our leaders. Let's not avoid them, because the more we avoid them, the more we give them a blanket assumption that we believe they're leaders. So until we speak there, they realize they are not our leaders, and we feel we need to have a better leaders. Finally, to say, let's hope that the same time, the same moment next year, we jubilate that at least there's improvement from where we have expressed ourselves in this year of 2023. At least 2024, we speak good news. But obviously, political leaders need to double their efforts. Political leaders need to double their efforts. I repeat myself. If we really intend to have elections as the peaceful and honorable way of transfer of power or shift from the transition, then the next 6 months, our leaders need to change their political attitudes. They need to demonstrate a political will, a political commitment. And this requires allocation of resources that makes the action for implementing the pending task of the revitalized peace agreement important. And of course, with the political parties, we better open the political space for everyone, for everybody, in country, outside country, to have equal rights and equal space of engaging the political space. My only message to citizens is that revolution should not be an option. We must talk. Going back to Bush is not the option, but let's talk, let's challenge. If we are killed for talking, it's much more better than when we lost our lives in the bushes, and at the end of the day, we don't know what is it. But of course, the political leadership need to bring peace. And of course, when it becomes harder and you don't allow people to speak, you push people to go to the bushes. As like I've said several times in this particular platform, that one time when I was doing the inquiry on the Arab Spring, the outcome of the Arab Spring is just when the state become adamant and the state become restricted freedom of expression, people wake up and people say enough is enough. The state is and the government is our first enemy in using the state to silence us. So freedom of expression is very important. Government must allow people to express themselves. If government want to mobilize citizens against the government, is actual control freedom of expression, assembly, and association. Otherwise, happy birthday. Wish everybody everywhere. My brother Peter Biar, my brother Abraham Awuolic, let the hopes remain in our mind. Let's not give up. And we can't give up by running to the bush. We can't give up. We shall talk and talk and talk until things come to reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Edmund Yakani, for that brief remark and also your words of encouragement to your fellow South Sudanese, wherever they are. Dr. Peter Biar, the floor is yours.
My people, the only thing that is really standing before us and a great future is fear. Fear for our lives, fear for poverty, fear that we will be left behind and victimized. And this is because courage has waned in our hearts. We have become cowards. We don't want to admit, but we have become cowards. And we pretend that we are wise. But the reality is this: wisdom and cowardice cannot coexist together. Bible tells us wisdom is a fruit of the Holy Spirit. It cannot exist with cowardice. Courage is what nurtures it. Speaking truth and the culture of speaking truth are the waters that makes it grow. Christ himself said, God is truth, and those who worship him must worship him with truth and spirit. The reason why we have become cowards is because when we pay the ultimate sacrifice, those who remain behind do not honor that sacrifice. And this is obvious when you see the state in which our veterans are in, where our widows are in, where our soldiers are in. We claim that we honor Dr. John because we have put him in our money. He's hanging in every office. But that is not honoring. What about the ideas and the values for which he died? What have become of those? So we look at this and we say, hey, if I show courage and then I end up dying, what will become of my family, my wife, my kids, all these people that depend on me, my community? And in that moment, we remember the old saying that a coward lives to raise his children. And in that moment, we want to be that coward that lives all life raising his children. But the reality is this: even the cowards eventually do die. No great country can be built without sacrifice. And not all of us can live to see that great nation that we have in our mind. Some of us must be willing to sacrifice ourselves. Stories of martyrdom, dignified death, are just as important as great leaders that have pulled their countries out of crisis. Some of us must be willing to pay that sacrifice. These are the myths upon which a great society can be built. We cannot continue running away from our destiny. We cannot continue to say, oh, the time is not right, and finding excuses. What is holding us back is fear. And we must overcome fear. We should not fear anything. We should only submit our life to the hands of God. How do we know what God has planned for us? All of us want to believe, especially the politician, that God planned for me to be the president. But what if God planned you to be a martyr so that your death sparks a rebirth of your nation? But then by shying away from that, you are preventing the truth and the new beginning from arriving. If Christ had not accepted to die, we would not have Christianity. And we will not have this new faith that has liberated us from the devil. My message is this: time has come for us to save this nation. Will it take some of us? Possibly. But will those who remain behind build a better future? Absolutely. We don't know where the chip may fall. Will we be the martyrs? Will we be the one that will build a new future? Only God Almighty knows. But let us have the courage to find out, to see where God has meant for us to be. And that is all I ask of you. And I'm not going to leave you alone in this struggle. We will be in it together. Let's be united in love. Not that we are against anyone. I agree with Edmund Yakani 100%. We do not need rebellion. We do not need to kill our innocent citizen. Even those soldiers are innocent. We don't need to kill them. We don't need to terrorize our women, our children, as it has been the case for the last 10 years. We, the leaders who believe we have a better vision, let's be the one willing to sacrifice ourselves. And let the people of South Sudan benefit from the sacrifice that we make. Happy 12th year anniversary of our independence. May God bless this country. May God bless each and every one of you. May it spark a reflection on where we are going, where we need to be. May we also reflect on our own responsibility and duties in getting ourselves there and our country there. I have no doubt whatsoever that South Sudan is a great country and will always be a great country. May God bless South Sudan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Biar Ajak, for the words and the encouragement that you have given to your fellow South Sudanese. If you are down there watching them now, while they are giving their last parting shot, please, you can say something about those words, because those words generate heat in our heart and our mind, and we begin to feel like we have been running for the almost 2 hours, although we are doing nothing. Thank you so much. The words are powerful. We move to Abraham Awuolic. Thereafter, we will close our show. Abraham Awuolic, the chance is yours.
Thank you very much. And I want to appreciate my brothers Edmund Yakani and Peter Biar for their closing remarks. It is apparent that Brother Peter Biar is on a campaign mode, and I support him. He has spoken in a unique way today that suggests that he is prepared. And that is awesome. That is the type of messaging that the people of South Sudan need. Now, in closing this conversation, I want to appeal to the people of South Sudan and to tell them that the last 12 years, we have put our lives, the future of our country, in the hands of our political leaders. And we have seen the results. Every country gets to have a census every 10 years. The reason is that people get born and so the new people must be counted. And so 10 years have gone. Now this is the 12th year, and the results of what our political leaders have been doing is out. It is a definitive political failure. We have not built a political system that can be sustained. Everything political is in shambles. The democratic aspirations that we have fought for and stood for are gone. The military that is supposed to defend South Sudan, because South Sudan is a resource-rich country. Anyone who wants to have things would want to invade South Sudan and steal our gold, our diamonds, our uranium, and our oil. We have weakened that army because we left it to be a possession and a property of political leaders. The economy, which is the main reason people come together is to prosper, has been dismantled beyond repair. And one of the things we have not talked about in this discussion is how these parties are financing their campaign. And the information I have is that the whole oil sale in the last quarter has been given to the SPLM for this rally in WOW and has been stuck into their accounts. And I also heard that it was Dr. Riek's turn. So the Minister of Petroleum has put some money into Dr. Riek's account also for the same purpose. We are not talking about that. And these are some of the issues which made me to conclude that there is a rigged game already. Some people have deposited money into their account. Other parties cannot even buy papers to print their political programs. Is that a level playing field? No, it's not. And I can guarantee you If we do not act, now as citizens of this country, we will, 22 years, another 12 years will go, and we will be talking the same language. So I'm asking you that we can no longer continue in this direction. The time has come, and I agree with Peter and Biar, the time has come for us to take action as citizens. I agree with them that violence is no longer a viable option for South Sudan. We have done enough of that. However, the time for revolution is now. There is always a time in any country's future where citizens say that we have had enough of this nonsense. You cannot build anything on this political situation in South Sudan. It has to be cleaned out. And if we want to have a legitimate and clean election, it must be decided and guarded by the people of South Sudan themselves. We can no longer put our future in the hands of the political leaders. They have proven a disaster to us. And so the PCCA maintained its position that the only way South Sudan could get out of this crisis is not through the failed revitalized peace agreement, which was extended and is likely to be extended because the talks of election are not genuine. They are there to appear, to make people appear willing to be elected. President Kiir has not mentioned a single word of democracy in his message in WOW. There is nothing about democracy that he has talked about. So the time has come for the ordinary people of South Sudan to rise up through nonviolence actions and begin to hold the leaders of South Sudan accountable. And to tell them that you cannot even be on our election tickets. It would be an insult. Some of them deserve to be in jail, not on the ballot box, for what they have done to the country. And so I believe that Peter is right. The time to sacrifice, to speak the truth, or to make a peaceful demonstration is now. Even this election, if we want it to be free and fair, it must be demanded on the street. There is no other place where this can be done. It has to be demanded on the street. Streets are the legitimate means of ordinary people who are no longer in trust of their political system. These are the only ways ordinary people can correct things in their country. And so that is what I'm calling for. And if we want to have a genuine election, the parties that are organizing this election are not legitimate. They have already rigged the system. They have deposited a lot of money into their accounts. Other parties have zero. And they have the army, which is loyal to them. Each one of them has a faction of the army, which will force people to vote in one way or the other for them. And they could even, somebody's mentioned this, that they could declare that election was done last night when everybody was sleeping, and Mr. So-and-so is the winner. And of course, there is nothing we can do. This is something they could do. They could basically say, we had an election last night. This is what the situation in WOW was. When these people meet to nominate President Kiir, no, they didn't. They met a fictitious number of people met in a fictitious meeting, and they nominated the president, and he was declared now the candidate of the party. We cannot trust these men who have proven time and again untrustworthy with this election. So the time for citizens, regular citizens, to act is now, and we don't need more violence. We need voices, we need feet on the ground, and we need postcards and placards. That's all we need. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Awuolic. Or maybe they can do like what happened in DRC, where the EC postponed the election 1 week to the poll, that we don't have enough finance to move on to the election.
That's right. They could do that as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Peter Biar, it seems like you want to add something. You're fine. Yeah, Edmund Yakani. Do you want to add something or you're fine?
Maybe Abraham.
Yes.
Abraham, maybe declaration number 2024, then no elections by December. Stand up.
I didn't hear you.
Say, let's not give up. Let's stand up. As Peter Biar
Yeah,
said.
that's why we are going. That's why we are going to declare another day of national awakening. So we are not giving up.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, our guest. First of all, to our viewers, thank you for always tuning in to Lake State Media to come and listen to the voices of reasoning. There are many wise and intelligent young South Sudanese that have really acquainted themselves with the current world affairs that can speak to you and you sleep like a baby that has been given birth with the hot water. Thank you so much for always tuning in. Keep coming. And it is our obligation to invite them once again to come and talk to us. Seeing we are now moving into the political and campaign time, we will actually be carrying out numerous shows for many guests and different personalities to come and talk to the citizens in their own perspective and how they see the elections that is about to happen maybe next year. And we can say maybe because none of us is confident and sure that the elections will happen indeed. And maybe at the end of the year, we'll be in a position to say we'll be having election. To our guests, thank you so much. Thank you for honoring our invitation within a short notice. I was not expecting you to respond quickly like that, but it has really given us courage and has really boosted our energy as Lake State Media to continue doing more show of this kind. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Biar Ajak, for your time. Not only that, you might be having a lot of things to do on Sunday with your family, with your kids, but you devoted your good 3 hours plus to come and talk to South Sudanese. Awuolic, thank you so much for your time in your unknown location. I know you would have been having humble time now, fixing some few things here and there, but you gave us that time to come and talk to South Sudanese, tell them what they're supposed to hear. Most of them are tired of these lies that we had a mistake yesterday, we will correct today, and tomorrow we had mistake again, we'll correct. An apology, numerous apology without clear agenda sometimes does not convince people. Get your apology to the citizens and do the right thing in order to give meaning to your apology. And that's what is happening with our government all the time. Thank you so much for that. Edmund Yakani, thank you so much, my brother. The thing that you are doing for the country and your time, your everything that you have been doing all along, keep it up, but don't lose connections with the people outside, especially the oppositions outside South Sudan. You should be the champion to speak for them, seeing you are civil activists and you are there to speak on the behalf of South Sudanese. To our Lake State Media team, President Isaac Tiangpol, thank you so much. You sacrificed your sleep simply because of South Sudan Independent Day, and also to us, our guest, Abraham Adit. Thanks for everything that you are doing to us. Before I yield it to Abraham Adit, our viewers and our guests, we are fundraising for Lake State Media equipment. We are trying to upgrade ourselves. Even the SPLM is now upgrading themselves, but because we don't have money, that's why we are trying to conduct fundraising to upgrade the office of Lake State Media in Juba and also here online, because we are lacking a lot of equipment so that they can make our work sufficient and effective. We don't reach to a certain level simply because of the equipment, lack of equipment. So go with it, and within no time, we might call of you for our fundraising to come and also talk to many people in the role of the media while we are in the campaign mood in the country. After this juncture, I yield it back to my co-host, Abraham Adit, put in the word of appreciation to our guests. May God bless each one of you. May God bless our guests. May God shower you with a lot of wisdom. Continue to speaking to South Sudanese. South Sudanese are ready to listen to you now more than they're listening to guns, because people are tired of hearing guns every now and then. Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Edmund Yakani, Abraham Awuolic, and Dr. Ajak. Thank you for coming. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, guys. And thank you, our viewers in Clubhouse, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you. We will see you next time. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
In Juba, Malatori, Ayambio, in Ping William, in Benti, Walla Quaju, Ayawao, in Ping William, in Malkal, Walla Pinyaram, in Ping William.